I transmigrated into a primitive matriarchal society, a world where men are viewed as utterly useless, existing only to consume resources. Because I was unable to bear children, the female chieftain banished me from the tribe. She claimed that men who could only gather wild berries were the lowest form of trash. Yet, when I used vines to haul the fattest fish from the river, the gaze of every woman turned toward me shifted in an instant. While they squabbled over bitter, unripe berries, I provided the men with roasted fish to eat. All of this was possible only because I possessed something they could never comprehend. Within my mind lies the wisdom of 5,000 years of civilization. Inside the damp cave, the female chieftain glared at me with an expression of profound disgust. Yan, get out of my tribe at once. She sat upon a stone in the center, draped in a crude garment of animal hides. I clenched my fists tightly. Behind me stood more than a dozen male tribesmen. At this moment, the cave was divided into two distinct factions. One side consisted of the female tribeswomen loyal to Wu Muya. The animal hide garments they wore were clearly of superior quality. The other side was the group of men standing behind me. They had only a simple hemp cord tied around their waists, using a single leaf to cover themselves or remaining entirely exposed. The men trembled as they looked at Wu Muya's cold expression, their eyes brimming with silent, hopeless tears. Yan, every time you go hunting, you return empty-handed. You useless men cannot even weave cloth, nor can you bear children. I forbade you from practicing cultivation, yet there are still one or two of you who do nothing but train day and night. You waste the tribe's provisions. If you cannot even provide food, you serve no purpose at all. Get out. Wu Muya's voice was as cold as ice. The surrounding women looked upon us with icy gazes, their eyes filled with disdain and contempt. My eyes flashed. I had transmigrated, arriving in this primitive era of tribal society. In this world, women hold all authority. It is a strictly matriarchal clan. Women are capable of bearing children, weaving animal hide garments, and raising the young. They are considered the supreme existence. As for the men, they are viewed as nothing more than monkeys with slightly sturdier frames. My grip tightened further. As someone from another world, I understood the inherent marvels of this matriarchal society all too well. Their techniques are non-existent, their weapons are obsolete, and their way of life is regressive. They struggle to eat 3 meals a day, often gnawing on tree bark and wild berries. The prospect of eating cooked meat was a far-fetched luxury. If there is any merit to the matriarchal clans of this world, it is perhaps that the women are prolific at reproduction, with fair skin and beautiful appearances. Ding, congratulations to the host for awakening the Patriarchal Clan Building System. The system shall now issue the primary mission to the host, to center yourself as the foundation and build a powerful patriarchal tribal society, activating the contribution point exchange module. The host need only perform actions that benefit the construction of a patriarchal society to unlock achievements, thereby earning exchange points. These exchange points may be utilized to procure anything the host can imagine from the integrated store, becoming the firm bedrock for your path toward establishing a patriarchal clan society. The very moment that synthetic voice resonated within my mind, the corners of my mouth curled upward. The system has finally arrived, yet remaining in this tribe is no longer an option. This world is one where cultivation is possible. The reason the female tribespeople appear so exceptionally beautiful is largely due to their cultivation, which fills their blood and ki with great vitality. The chieftain Wu Muya alone has enough strength to crush a dozen male tribespeople with ease. As for us, one might ask, why are men incapable of the same? The current cultivation methods are crafted entirely based on the female physiological structure. If a man were to cultivate them rashly, the risk of exploding to death is extremely high, and the efficiency is dozens of times worse. However, now that the system has awakened, the time has come to show these women what a true man is capable of. Chieftain, the heat of the season is upon us. Even the wild fruits and edible greens outside have withered. I beg you to show mercy. Do not cast Yan out, at the very least, wait until the heat subsides. Just as my lips curved into a smirk and I prepared to confront Wu Muya among the crowd of female tribespeople, a girl around my own age, roughly 18, wearing a bone ornament in her hair, spoke up with evident anxiety. The girl possessed a lively and beautiful countenance, her glistening eyes veiled by a thin layer of mist. It is forbidden. Men must be punished. There is nothing left to negotiate. Wu Muzi, step back. Wu Muya cast a frigid glare at Wu Muzi, her gaze seemingly capable of bleeding ice. I looked at Wu Muzi, feeling a stir of emotion within me. Wu Muzi is a younger kinswoman who grew up alongside me in the tribe. Unlike the other women in the clan who treat me like a common animal, she truly respects me as her elder brother. Just as Wu Muzi was frantically preparing to interject further, I shouted, "Enough! Wu Muya, isn't it simply my departure you desire? Why must you make things difficult for a girl like Wu Muzi? I will lead them away from the tribe. Is that not sufficient? Wu Muya, hear me well. I shall lead the men of this tribe to forge a new civilization, and live a life 1,000 times better than any we could endure under the rule of you women. O Muya, I will wait for the day you come weeping to beg for my mercy." A glint flashed in my eyes as I shouted at Omuya. Upon hearing those words, Omuya suddenly burst into laughter, her body trembling with every convulsion, her slender, graceful figure with those ample curves appearing truly seductive, yet her smile was chilling to the core, as if she had just heard the most ridiculous joke under the heavens. "Diane, you foul-smelling male ape, how dare you speak to the chieftain in such a manner?" Several female tribespeople shouted in anger, while others broke into mocking laughter. Unable to weave cloth, unable to build a shelter, unable to hunt even a single beast, a useless male ape who knows nothing. Yet you dare to boast that you will build a tribe 100,000 times better than ours. Who could possibly believe such a thing? Diane, say no more, kneel down and beg the chieftain for forgiveness. Even if we must toil like beasts of burden, we must remain in the tribe. Leaving the tribe now is nothing short of courting death. The men standing behind me, each one dark-skinned and gaunt to the bone, sighed as they tugged at my arms. Naturally, they did not believe a word I said. In their eyes, we were nothing but useless men, destined to be beaten, scolded, and discarded by the women. Let us go, these women do not understand. From this day forward, if you follow my lead, I, Diane, shall ensure you live in comfort and abundance. Is there anyone willing to follow me? I waved my hand, looking at the dozen or so gaunt, dark-skinned tribesmen before me. Everyone ignored me, viewing me as if I had lost my mind. They all knelt and kowtowed to Omuya. Even if they had to lower themselves to the status of beasts, they were determined to remain in the tribe, no matter how much shame they had to endure. Only 3 of them refused to continue living in such degradation. 2 of the older men in the tribe and 1 man around my own age stepped out from the cave. They stood on my side. Even if it meant enduring hunger and cold in the wilderness, they would no longer live as groveling slaves. We must depart. They did not believe my promises, but were simply filled with indignation at Omuya's heartless display. The remaining tribespeople watched them from their kneeling to choose to depart at such a moment. He is truly courting death. I chose not to linger any longer and departed from the cave alongside the others. We had not traveled far when footsteps echoed from behind. I turned to find it was Omuzi. She did not speak a word, her eyes brimming with tears as she took my hand and pressed several berries into my palm. Gazing at the 2 or 3 unripe berries in my hand, I let out a long sigh. In this matriarchal society, berries were rarely left over after distribution. These were undoubtedly the ones she had secretly set aside for me. For a moment, I was so moved that I was left speechless. Yian, please endure for a while longer. I will bring you more berries. Omuzi looked at me, her expression filled with heartache. I reached out to pat her head, offering a confident smile. Rest assured, I will certainly return. Muzi's face was sorrowful, as if she were on the verge of tears. Brother Yian, I know you can do it. I must go now. Farewell. She choked back a sob, wiping her eyes as she forced herself to say goodbye before turning away. I watched her receding figure, a look of reassurance on my face. If Omuzi places such faith in me, I must not betray her expectation. As I turned my gaze toward the distance, I was instantly stunned by the sight before me. How could they claim that the abandoned are destined only to perish? Where exactly is the hardship beyond the tribe? Everywhere I looked was a treasure trove. Before me, herds of plump, healthy antelope galloped across the plains. There were massive beehives with honey dripping from their combs, and gargantuan wild fruits hung from the tall trees. These were all resources the matriarchal clan lacked, yet I could acquire them with ease. What are we to do? If this continues, we shall surely starve to death. Must we truly seek refuge with another tribe? Every tribe is the same. They call us mere monkeys, unworthy of standing as equals with the women. Even so, I would rather die than return to be treated as a slave by Omuya. We are men, not slaves. Amidst the desolate wilderness, the 3 of them lamented, their eyes filled with utter despair. Meanwhile, I was already occupied in the distance, one moment climbing trees to gather vines, the next digging in the mud, my entire body covered in dirt. Yet I did not stop for a single moment. Standing by the riverbank, I began to weave the vines together, strand by strand. I am weaving a fishing net. This river is only waist-deep, and the fish within it swim freely. Due to the primitive tools of this matriarchal clan, the tribespeople are fundamentally unable to catch the fish in the river. Because the fish have no natural predators, every one of them is extraordinarily large. The meat is fresh and delicious. One would be truly fortunate to secure even a single catch. Nearby tribes are so covetous that they are willing to trade 3 men from their own ranks for one. As for me, I must fashion a fishing net now to catch these large fish and satisfy my immediate hunger. Tian, what are you doing? Have you considered which tribe you intend to seek refuge with? A clansman stepped forward, eyeing me with deep suspicion. Though he possessed a lean, dark frame, his eyes were clear and full of vitality. Wumuha, a strong young man within the tribe. His relationship with me was quite good. Wumuha, come here and give me a hand. I intend to catch the fish in this river for our sustenance. I continued to bow my head, meticulously weaving the vines into a net with mesh gaps wide enough to secure the river fish. Catching fish? Wumuha wore an expression of utter disbelief. Taiyan, you have truly lost your mind. Everyone has seen you fumbling about here for some time now. They all think you have gone mad. I am the only one who still comes over to speak with you, and yet you claim that you wish to catch fish. Tian, you are truly insane. Not only do fish move with incredible speed beneath the water, but their bodies are so slippery that it is fundamentally impossible to grasp them. I have expended more effort than I can count on this. I pursued a single fish for the entire afternoon, and even then I barely managed to graze its scales. I dare wager that, aside from myself, or even in the surrounding tribes, has ever managed to touch a fish. I squatted by the riverbank, black lines appearing on my forehead. There was no one to lend a hand. Weaving the net was already exhausting enough, without having to listen to the incessant prattling of the loudmouthed Wumuha. Wumuha, let me ask you this, how long has our brotherhood lasted? Have I ever deceived you? If you will help, then help. If not, go elsewhere and busy yourself. I spoke while wiping away my sweat, and Muha's expression grew deeply conflicted. You believe that I am capable of catching fish? He did not believe it in the slightest. What could a fish possibly be? It is a delicacy that perhaps even the clan leader has never had the privilege of tasting. But then he observed the serious expression on my face. The bond between us has always been steadfast. I told him I had never deceived him, and in truth I never had. Every time we went hunting, whenever I claimed there were wild fruits or herbs, they were invariably there. The more he pondered, the more conflicted he became, until he finally steeled his resolve and sat down heavily beside me. Whether there are fish or not is of no importance. What matters is our brotherhood. Helping you once is of no consequence. Muha spoke with a look of weariness. I did not reply. I pressed one end of a vine into his hands to hold steady while I frantically began weaving the net at the other end. The sky had turned a golden hue. There was not much time left. With Yumuha's assistance, the speed of the weaving increased significantly. The men of the tribe watched from afar, their faces filled with pity and lament. Yi Yan has truly lost his mind. What on earth is he doing over there? What use is there in weaving vines together? With so many gaps remaining in the middle, it is nothing but a futile effort. They merely assumed that because I could not accept the reality of being exiled, I had descended into madness. Little did they know my spirit was sharper than ever. By the time the sun dipped further toward the horizon, the weaving was finally complete. I let out a refreshing shout as a square net, as tall and wide as two men combined, lay spread out before us. Heavy stones were tied to the four corners, with a vine threaded through the center of the net. Once cast into the river, the weight of the stones would pull it to the bottom. By pulling the central vine, the net could be drawn closed. I flicked the net with satisfaction. It was sturdy and durable. It would easily last for dozens of uses. Is that it? I was wondering what you were planning. You spent the entire time weaving something that looks like a sleeping mat. Yumaha stared blankly at what I called a net, completely unable to fathom its purpose. Just wait and see. I offered a faint smile, folding the net into my arms. Walking to the riverbank, I cast it with all my might. Weighted by heavy stones, the net unfurled perfectly, sinking into the depths with a flurry of bubbles. I stood by the river, clutching the vine rope, waiting to haul it in. What are you doing? That grass mat took so much effort to weave. Why did you throw it into the river? A shout erupted from beside me. Umuhe stared in disbelief as I cast the object into the water, his temper flaring instantly. His face flushed a deep crimson as he pointed at me, trembling with indignation. You have truly lost your mind. You are nothing but a madman. I should never have helped you in the first place. Umuhe watched the net sink to the riverbed, bubbles still rising to the surface, his face ashen like cold embers. After putting in so much labor, how could you just discard it into the river like that? Even if it were just for sleeping, quit your incessant whining and come here to help. My expression darkened as I began to pull the vine rope with rhythmic, powerful tugs, the net having settled firmly on the bottom. Judging by the shift in tension, it seemed I had caught something. I despise you. Muttering under his breath, Wu Muhe stepped forward to assist me with the rope. Since he had committed to helping, he had no choice but to see it through to the end. He glared at me, his eyes burning with resentment. He was likely planning to toss me into the river the moment I lowered my guard. Under our combined strength, the net was finally dragged onto the bank. I stepped forward to inspect the catch exactly as I had foreseen. Once submerged, the heavy stones had tangled together, effectively trapping the fish within the mesh. I crouched before the net and took a deep, steadying breath. Success or failure hinged on this very moment. The instant I opened the net, a large plump fish leaped directly at me, slapping me across the face. Caught off guard, I fell backward onto the ground, wiping the slime from my face. I opened my eyes to see 4 large fish and 8 smaller ones. The largest were the length of a forearm and as wide as a bowl, while even the smaller ones were the size of an open palm. They were all alive, thrashing vigorously, their white bellies and dark scales glistening. They were at their peak of freshness. I curled my lips into a grin. Does this not prove that we have succeeded, Shan? Congratulations to the host for performing your first active contribution to the patrilineal clan. Achievement unlocked. Expert fisherman title obtained, granting 20 contribution points. This fishing attempt has yielded 5 contribution points. The system's notification echoed within my mind. I brushed the mud off my backside and stood up. A truly flawless beginning. What is this? Ha's voice rang out from behind me. He stared at the large fish struggling in the net with a stunned expression. I spoke nonchalantly. But fish live underwater. How did it end up on land? Ha scratched his head in bewilderment. His mind clearly could not comprehend what he was seeing. Naturally, it was because I fished it out. But how did you fish it out? With this. I pointed toward the fishing net. With this grass mat? This is called a fishing net. You are using a grass mat to scoop up grass? I was completely speechless. Ha had never seen a fish on land before. His walnut-sized brain momentarily ceased to function. I picked up a large fish from the net and tossed it toward him, so that he could experience for himself that catching a fish was not some distant dream, but a reality right before his eyes. Ha caught the fish and clutched it to his chest, still dazed, until the fish's slippery, pungent slime smeared against his skin. As the creature in his arms thrashed wildly, the sensation was identical to the fish he had spent an entire afternoon chasing. Ha went wild. We really caught a fish. This is a fish, a real fish. Yi Yan, it turns out you were not insane. The things you said were true. You truly are a... Ha ran about in a frenzy, shouting at the top of his lungs that I am the Heaven Scourge. In the distance, his frantic cries reached the ears of the tribesmen standing over 100 meters away. Another one has lost his mind. I recall Ha being such an agile and composed young man. Why does he become so unhinged whenever he is involved with Yi Yan? Is it possible that Yi Yan's madness is contagious? The two men exchanged glances, but one of them, gifted with keen eyesight, squinted as he peered in our direction. It seems Ha and Ye Yan have managed to catch something by the riverbank. Could it be fish? As soon as those words were uttered, the other man reflexively swallowed his saliva. In their daily lives, the rations distributed to the men were far scarcer than those given to the women of the tribe. To make matters worse, they were tasked with the most grueling labor, such as gathering wild fruits and foraging for forest greens. Now, having been cast out, half a day had passed without a single morsel touching their stomachs. Hearing the word fish, their mouths immediately began to water. Do not jest. Fish are exceptionally rare treasures, rarely seen even at the tables of our tribal chiefs. As for us men, we have never even laid eyes upon one. In all my time, I have never met a soul capable of catching fish. Do you truly believe Yi Yan is capable of such a feat? The man spoke with a self-deprecating laugh, adding that even if it were not fish, and even if they had indeed managed to scavenge some form of sustenance, we have provided no assistance, so how could we possibly accept their food? It would go against our customs, the other side. Indeed, if they caught it and were willing to share, that would be one matter, but since we have contributed nothing, how could we justify partaking in their hard-won meal? Just as the two were lamenting their plight and preparing to gather firewood for the night, a figure emerged from the distance, carrying something in his grasp. Upon closer inspection, it was revealed to be Ha. In his hands, he carried a string of creatures bound together by vines. On each side hung a specimen, still thrashing with vitality. They were remarkably long. They looked exactly like fish. The two men gulped, wondering if Yi Yan had truly caught fish and pulled several from the water. He told me to come over and gift each of you a fish. Yi Yan told me that if we wish to consume this fish, we must obey his commands and submit to him. Umuka walked before the others, a cunning grin plastered across his face. Umuli, this fish is a gift from Yi Yan to you. He stated clearly that if you desire this fish, you must acknowledge him as your leader and swear your allegiance. Yi Yan further declared his intention to build a tribe far more powerful than the tribe of Wumuya. As night fell, Wumuka grinned foolishly and headed toward the two men. The sharp-eyed one was Wumuli and the other was Wumula. Seeing the massive fish still struggling on the vine threaded through its gills in Wumuka's hand, both men were stunned, their eyes widening in astonishment. Their necks craned forward as their stomachs let out a deep, hollow rumble. Saliva began to drip from the corners of their mouths. Is this truly a fish? Rising from beneath the water? How could such a thing be possible? Wumuli's eyes burned with hunger, yet his heart remained filled with suspicion. He was the one who pulled it from the depths. Rest assured it is real. Wumuka chuckled coldly. Well, do you want it or not? Even our tribal chief has likely never tasted a fish of this caliber. A smaller fish was enough to secure 3 men. This one is as long as a forearm, a truly magnificent catch. But there is a condition. If you want this fish, you must recognize my big brother Ye Yan as your tribal leader. Wumuka raised his chin in triumph, dangling the 2 fish before them. The 2 men's eyes lit up once more, but Wumula forced himself to suppress his desire. Fighting back the growl of his stomach, he spoke. Wumuka, we cannot accept this fish. I do not believe that Yi Yan caught this himself. You must prove to us that this fish is not something tainted. If this is a rotten or poisonous fish you scavenged, we would all be doomed the moment we ate it. As these words were spoken, Wu Muli, who had been entranced by the large fish, snapped back to reality. Indeed, they had never even heard of the concept of catching fish before. Their primal instinct for survival, honed over years in the wild, warned them that this creature was not meant to be eaten. You refuse to eat even this? Very well, then I shall go ask Yi Yan myself. Wumuka scratched his head, finding these 2 to be incredibly troublesome. These 2 fish were as thick as a man's bicep. In times of famine, even rotting meat would be fought over, yet these 2 were acting with absurd arrogance. With that, Wumuka led the 2 men toward the riverbank where I was waiting. At this moment, I had just cast the net once more. I began pulling the heavy load upward, eager to see what lay within. Truly, another bountiful harvest, 3 large fish and 6 smaller ones, with the largest specimens as long as a forearm and as wide as a bowl. Ding, congratulations, host. By performing another catch, you have gained 5 contribution points. Umuk and Umukla were standing nearby, witnessing firsthand as I hauled the fish from the depths of the river. The intention to reprimand me for my recklessness was instantly swallowed back into their throats. Their worldview, much like Umuka's before them, suffered an immediate collapse. How could a single fish be worth enough to feed 3 people like them? Heavens above, Umukla felt his face burning. He had only just questioned if these were poisonous, and yet the man had hauled in several more right before his eyes. At this moment, both of them felt an urge to drop to their knees beside me and pledge their absolute loyalty. If they could, they would turn back time just to strike themselves for not having snatched the fish and devoured it immediately. Having already been cast out of the tribe, what was there left to pretend about? Why were they being so sluggish? I turned my head back with an indifferent expression. Had they agreed yet? I looked toward Umuka. Earlier, I had instructed him to take the fish and recruit Umukli and Umukla. But now, not only were they refusing to touch the fish, but their faces were also twisted in a look of sheer bewilderment, as if they had tasted something foul. What is the meaning of this? Uha scratched his head. They refuse to accept the fish, believing that your catch is not something wholesome. Do they think these are poisonous fish infested with some sort of parasite? What did you say? I let out an incredulous shout. Were these fish not just pulled from the river? Since when is there a distinction between good and bad fish? Why must these starving, impoverished fools be so difficult to please? Was this not the very spot where I pulled them from just moments ago? Look at this. It is still fresh and struggling. Is there something you find unsatisfactory? Are you dissatisfied because the fish I offered are too small? If that is the case, do not accept them. Go and forage for wild berries to sustain yourselves instead. I raised my eyebrows as I looked at Umukli and Umukla. They immediately began to smile apologetically. Please, no Yayan, Chief Yayan, from this day forward, you are our chief, and we shall obey your every command. We were wrong to think you were mad. That was our error. We offer you our sincerest apologies. From this day forth, whatever you choose to do, we shall support you with our absolute loyalty. Am I not right? Umukli answered, yes, absolutely right. Whatever our clan leader commands, we shall execute without hesitation. If the clan leader tells us to head east, we shall never dare to venture west. Umuki and Umukla beamed with delight. Any lingering caution or fear of danger was cast to the winds. After all, I am the one who can retrieve fish from the river. Fish are a luxury that the clan leaders of the neighboring tribes have likely never even laid eyes upon. A single fish is worth more than the three of them combined. What use is dignity or pride now? Flattery is the only path that matters. Yungu Ka stood to the side, observing their utter lack of restraint, and could not help but sigh. So with fish, one truly can do as one pleases. You two still dare to doubt me? Forget about the large fish. You shall make do with these two smaller ones. I looked down upon Umukli and Umukla with a dismissive tilt of my chin. I tossed them two relatively small fish to serve as their evening meal. They gazed longingly at the large fish, which were the length of a forearm, their mouths watering, then looked down at the palm-sized fish resting in their own hands. They felt a sense of disappointment, yet they dared not utter a single complaint. Compared to the days when they would endure 9 bouts of hunger over 3 days, a smaller portion was still a portion. To have fish to eat at all, they should already be deeply grateful to me. The 4 of us sat upon a boulder by the riverbank. The sky had turned pitch black and the river rippled gently, the flowing water emitting a soft murmur accompanied by a sharp, briny scent. I held the fish I had just caught and realized a rather difficult dilemma. How on earth is one supposed to consume these raw? Would it not be far superior to roast the fish over a fire? At that very moment, Umuki could no longer restrain himself. He lunged at a large fish, intent on devouring it raw. Umukli and Umukla also prepared to consume theirs in the same manner. Wait a moment, how are we supposed to eat it like this? It must be roasted over a fire until cooked before it can be consumed. As these words left my lips, the surrounding air seemed to freeze in place. Regardless of whether it was Omuha, Omaluk, or Omula, every face was filled with astonishment. Tribal Chief Yi Yan, although we previously stated that we would believe whatever you said, but you claim you want to conjure the divine fire, that is something we truly cannot bring ourselves to believe. Omula displayed a look of fearful trembling, exchanging glances with Omumuha. All three swallowed hard, regretting their previous words. Yi Yan was no longer the madman he once was. Because what exactly was this divine fire? It was a terrifying scourge sent by the heavenly gods, descending every few months to latch onto the trees and spread without end. Countless tribes had already been reduced to ash by this divine fire. Every tribe regarded the divine fire as a supreme taboo, fleeing from it at the slightest sight, yet I dared to speak of creating it myself. The eyes of the primitive trio now held a trace of terror as they looked at me. They immediately felt the fat fish in their hands had lost all its appeal. Why are you staring at me? Being fixated upon by the 3 of them made me feel quite uncomfortable. Is it not just a matter of igniting a flame? I looked around, but there were no materials nearby to start a fire. Using flint was too cumbersome, and a wooden hand drill was even more tedious. Brainwave of the host detected. Crucial information identified. Searching for items to assist the host in starting a fire. Windproof lighter, capable of producing a flame for campfires. Creating a robust flame and equipped with wind-resistant technology, allowing it to function normally even in high-wind environments. Price, 20 exchange points. The voice of the system echoed within my mind. I slapped my thigh, having nearly forgotten about the system, let alone its ability to detect brainwaves to recommend products. How remarkably intelligent. I thought to myself and gave my consent. At that very moment, a small, flat, square-shaped box appeared in my hand, pitch black in color with a lid. From the outside, it looked no different from a pebble. I tapped my finger against the casing. It was incredibly hard. From now on, I have an additional tool for smashing things in my possession. It truly serves 2 purposes at once. Patriarch Diane, pray do not entertain such delusions. You speak of creating divine fire. Do you not realize this is an act of sacrilege against the gods? You will surely invite divine retribution upon us. Divine fire is not something we dare to offend. Why must you insist on this course of action? Is it not sufficient to simply consume the fish raw? If we do not eat now, the fish will no longer be fresh. Such a delicious meal, it would be a shame to waste it. If we waste it, the Anai tribe will surely be enraged. Omuha furrowed his brow, offering distressed counsel. He knew that if he did not lead the way, the others would not dare to partake. Indeed, Patriarch Diane, let us eat. Do not squander any more time. With fish in hand, what more could one possibly desire? Omuli and Omala chimed in, adding their own persistent persuasions. If you consume it now, you will undoubtedly regret it in a moment. I curled my lip. The raw, pungent scent of the fish was truly intolerable. If I could transform this into a succulent, roasted fish dripping with oil, would that not be perfection? Since you have made your stance clear, we shall stand on ceremony no longer. The eyes of the primitive trio lit up. They snatched the raw fish and began to devour it ravenously. Heavens, is this truly fish? What manner of wretched existence have I been living all this time? Good heavens, before long, nothing remained of their fish but the skeletons. Had the fish bones not been sharp and difficult to chew, they likely would have swallowed the entire thing whole. As for me, I ventured out to gather twigs and dried grass nearby. I had to prepare to kindle the fire. Is Patriarch Diane still fixated on his plan to conjure divine fire? For the sake of this so-called divine fire, he refuses to even eat. He even had the audacity to claim we would surely regret our actions. Once the fish is no longer fresh, I am certain he will be the one filled with regret. The three of them had each consumed a fish and were now too satiated to even stir. They sprawled out, watching me as I busied myself with my task. Finally, I located a patch of soft earth, drove a long branch deep into the ground, and tamped the soil down firmly. I arranged stones in a circle, placing the dried grass and flammable bark within the center. Once the firewood was stacked, I produced my windproof lighter. Click, a blaze roared to life, illuminating the endless, dark, primitive wilderness. Ding! Congratulations to the host for achieving the divine bamboo fusion accomplishment. Having received 20 contribution points, I picked up a sharp stone to gut the fish, removed the entrails by the riverbank, skewered the fish on a branch, and brought the lighter close to the pile of kindling. Just at this moment, Umuka stirred from his slumber. He rubbed his sleepy eyes, intending to relieve himself. Suddenly, he sensed a flicker of light. He turned his head and stood frozen in place, his eyes filled with profound terror. In the dead of night, my profile was illuminated by the dancing flames. That light was the very fire that all primitive people feared above all else, regarding it as divine retribution and the flame of the gods. Umuka let out a wretched, distorted cry, collapsing to the ground in sheer panic. His shrieks jolted Umali and Umkla awake. Just as the two were about to speak, they caught sight of the flickering flames. In that instant, their faces displayed the deepest horror they had ever known. It is the divine fire of Yayan. It has descended upon us as a heavenly curse. He intends to slaughter us all. The image of the fire was seared into their vision. All the ancient legends regarding the divine fire that had circulated within the tribe flooded their minds at once. The three of them stood like caged beasts awaiting execution, howling like wild animals to release their terror. What are you shrieking about? Do you have any idea what time it is? Must you make such a commotion? I glared at the three of them, screaming at the top of their lungs, my expression far from pleased. It is the divine fire. Ah! We are surely doomed. This entire shore will turn into a sea of flames. Everyone will perish. Terrified to the point of incontinence, the three of them clutched their heads and fled in a chaotic panic. I looked down at the weak flame flickering from the lighter in my hand, unable to suppress my confusion. Isn't this just a small campfire? Is such a reaction truly necessary? I let out a sigh. Extinguish the lighter. There is no need to be afraid. The divine fire they feared so deeply vanished, yet the three of them seemed not to hear me at all. Ian, what kind of madness is this? The wrath of the gods has descended, and it will spread through the grass and consume everything. We will all be buried in a sea of flames. Countless tribes and countless souls have perished under the curse of the divine fire. Do you claim that the divine fire has vanished? Who could ever believe such a thing? Omuli clutched his head and wailed, his face streaming with tears and snot. Omula and Omuha were paralyzed, so terrified they could scarcely breathe. Look back for yourselves. The divine fire has truly vanished. Omuli stood with his back turned to me. Still huddled on the ground, clutching his head, refusing to believe, yet amidst his terror he forced his eyes open to look toward me. There was only pitch-black darkness. There was nothing left. No scorching sea of flames reaching into the heavens, nor the agonizing shrieks of those being consumed by the fire. There was truly nothing at all. Omuli remained crouched, head in his hands, mindlessly muttering, the divine fire has truly vanished. The divine fire is gone. Is it true? Omula and Omuha turned their heads trembling, and discovered that the hellish nightmare they imagined did not exist. There was only a silent ink-black void. All three of them collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, overwhelmed by the profound relief of having survived a calamity. Was what we just witnessed merely an illusion? It was no illusion. I looked at them and flicked my lighter, and a small flame reappeared before the three of them. Their hearts, which had only just begun to steady, immediately leaped back into their throats. Had the divine fire not just vanished? How could it have appeared once more? Their legs had turned to jelly. Even if they wished to flee, they could not move. The three of them were trapped between laughter and tears, reaching a point of despair where even death seemed a welcome release. Do you believe me now? This divine fire that you claim brings nothing but catastrophe. I can control it with ease. I adopted a superior air, flicking the lighter on and off, speaking nonchalantly. The flame ignited and extinguished, leaving the three of them frozen in place. You are actually capable of controlling the divine fire? Omuli spoke, his expression hollow and date. How could this be? This is the heavenly fire that only the gods can descend. How could a mere mortal possibly command it? Oumuhoa's expression turned to one of sheer terror as she shook her head, muttering, "This is absolutely impossible. This defies every law of nature." Omula stared fixedly at the flames in my hand, not daring to look away for even a fraction of a second. If the divine fire they held in such holy reverence was now under my control, what did their previous worship even amount to? Ah, decorum, is it? While the three of them were still frozen in shock, I ignited the flame once more, leaning down to light the wood pile I had prepared. The fire roared to life, and I began to roast the fish I had skewered earlier. The three of them simply stood there, eyes wide, watching me grill the fish in stunned silence. Once the fish was ready, I pulled the branch away, admiring the fragrant golden brown skin with fat sizzling enticingly. It would be an understatement to say how excited I felt. Ever since I transmigrated to this world, I have been forced to survive on nothing but bitter wild berries. Along with unpalatable wild greens, I have been so hungry my cheeks have grown gaunt. After a full day of labor without a single morsel, I was finally about to taste a proper meal of grilled fish. I felt a surge of emotion deep within that I could hardly put into words. Although the roasted fish looked a bit plain, so I took the berries Omutu gave me earlier and squeezed their juices over it as a glaze. The dish was instantly transformed. I took a bite. The skin was crispy and fragrant, while the meat inside remained succulent and sweet. The tartness of the berries added a new complex depth to the flavor. I ate with great satisfaction. Meanwhile, the three primitives standing nearby were left dazed as the savory aroma reached them. What is he doing with the divine fire that we worship as a deity? He is actually roasting fish over it. Why does it smell so intoxicating? At this moment, Yumaluk and Yumala were staring intensely at the fish in my hand, their eyes glowing with desire. What is this? It smells absolutely divine. Yi Yan, what exactly are you eating? Yumaluk looked at the grilled fish in my hands, asking with cautious hesitation, his senses completely captivated by the aroma, to the point where it even overshadowed the fear he had felt for the divine fire moments ago. It is grilled fish. This is the way of eating I spoke of, and I assure you, you are going to regret not trying it sooner. I continued to chew on the fish, speaking with complete indifference. Wumula suddenly snapped to his attention, his finger trembling as he pointed at the grilled fish in my hand. "Tribal Chief, are you truly harnessing divine fire just to improve the taste of a fish?" I nodded. The three of them were struck dumb once again. To think that someone would employ divine fire for nothing more than culinary refinement. At this moment, as they gazed at my silhouette, they felt as if this man stood taller and more vast than the very heavens and earth. Their expressions shifted, filled with profound reverence and perhaps even a flicker of trepidation. There were no fish scales to prick the mouth, nor the stench of entrails. There was only succulent meat, far more fragrant than anything eaten raw. Umuha had become so enamored with the grilled fish that he had completely lost track of his surroundings. "I told you so, yet you refused to believe me. In that case, you have only yourselves to blame." I removed a fishbone from my mouth and spoke. These words struck the three of them like a bolt of lightning. Clearly, they had resolved not to doubt me any further, yet why had they lacked faith in the first place? As for Wumuha, he was caught between laughter and tears. He had already consumed an entire large fish, and his stomach was stretched to its limit. Even if I were to grill another for him, he would be physically unable to partake. I looked at their expressions and let out a hearty laugh. One could hardly blame them, for to these primitive people this grilled delicacy was beyond their wildest imagination. I glanced at the fish resting on the branches, totaling 3 large ones. I took one down and offered it to Wumuli and Wumula. "You two shall share this one. A single fish likely won't be enough for you, but I must keep the last one for a specific purpose. Remember well, those who partake of my offerings must serve me with diligence. Is that understood?" The two gazed at the offered grilled fish, a sense of apprehension stirring in their hearts. The fish smelled divine and looked succulent, but after all, it had been prepared over the sacred fire. Would consuming it be an affront to the gods? "Give that to me." Tribal Chief Yi Yan. Just as the two were hesitating, Wu Muha let out a scoff, swiftly snatching the grilled fish from my hand and devouring it in large mouthfuls. To have such fragrant food and yet be too afraid to eat it. You two wouldn't even be first in line for a hot meal. What did you say? Wu Muha, save some for us. Watching Wu Muha gorge himself on the fish until almost nothing remained, Wu Mu. At this moment, they had neither the strength nor the desire to worry about offending the gods. They scrambled to recover their food from Yu Muha's jaws, but it was already too late. Nothing remained of the grilled fish but a tiny tail. Both of them wore expressions of utter sorrow as they split the tail in half, each placing their portion into their mouths. Woe is us, only this pathetic scrap of a tail remains. I regret this so deeply. Yumuha, you wretched beast. Watching this scene unfold, I could not suppress a wry smile. As the night reached its deepest hour, the sound of soft footsteps suddenly echoed through the silence. Yian, I have brought you something to eat. The clan gathered some wonderful ground cherries today. They are truly delicious. You surely haven't eaten all day, have you? I couldn't bring myself to eat much, so I brought the rest here for you. The voice belonged to a young girl. Clear was Yumuzi. There were faint traces of exhaustion at the corners of her eyes. She walked over and sat down upon the stone beside me. Everyone in the clan is fast asleep now. Clan leader Yumuya forbade me from coming out to find you. I had no choice but to sneak out in the middle of the night to reach you. You must not have eaten anything the entire day. You must be famished. These ground cherries were picked fresh today. They are incredibly sweet. Her small hand opened, revealing several plump, succulent ground cherries before my eyes. I looked at her anxious expression and merely offered a faint smile. How could I say I hadn't eaten? I had just finished an entire large fish and was still satiated, unlike the girl before me. The rations allocated to each member of the tribe were meager enough as it was. For her to set aside these fruits for me meant she must be hungry herself. Seeing that I did not reach out to take them, Yumuzi assumed I was merely being modest, so she puffed out her chest with a look of feigned confidence. I managed to gather plenty of ground cherries today, and I am already quite full. These are precious provisions. If they are not eaten now, they will lose their freshness. I could not help but laugh inwardly at her display, then gently pushed the fruits back into her hands. I will not eat them. You should finish them yourself. Yumaziz immediately grew flustered. Brother Yi Yan, your constitution has been frail since childhood, and you were driven out of the tribe today. You certainly haven't had a proper meal all afternoon. These ground cherries are delicious. Please eat them, or your body will surely fail to hold up. The primordial trio standing nearby burst into loud, mocking laughter upon hearing this. Oh my, what a precious ground cherry you have there. It is a pity that we no longer have any interest in such sour fruit. Not only do we have no desire for it, but our clan leader Ye Yan would certainly not care for it either. Wu Muzi grew visibly irritated. What nonsense are you spouting? You are nothing but a group of men who can accomplish nothing of value. Such delicious ground cherries are something that even we women rarely get to taste. How could you possibly have no interest in them? It is clear that you have none to eat, and you do not want Brother Yi Yan to have any either. Stop putting on such an arrogant facade. Umuzi, do you know why we have no interest in the ground cherries you brought? Because we have fish to eat. The primordial trio wore expressions of immense self-satisfaction. Uma's face was filled with utter astonishment. Fish? Isn't that something that swims in the river? Even clan leader Wu Muya would instinctively swallow his saliva whenever fish was mentioned. Even among the clan leaders of the nearby tribes, few had ever tasted fish. How can that be? Fish are creatures of the water. Even clan leader Wu Muya has never tasted one. You are just a group of men. How could you possibly have fish to eat? Wu Muzizi, if you do not believe it, then look at this. I curled my lip into a smile and pulled a grilled fish from the pile of ashes. The warmth of the embers had preserved its heat perfectly, so it remained incredibly succulent. What is this? Wu Muzi stared at the fish skewered on the branch, her expression one of pure disbelief. It is fish. I handed the grilled fish to her and said nonchalantly, You really have fish? Her face betrayed her incredulity. This was a fish that usually she could only taste in her dreams. Yet now it had appeared right before her eyes. I know this is a fish, but why does it look nothing like the ones I usually see in the river? The fish before her was golden-hued, its surface glistening with oil. It bore no resemblance to the fish from the river. Because this is grilled fish. It is grilled fish. Take a bite and you will understand immediately. Trusting me, Wu Muzi cautiously took a bite. In that very moment, her palate, accustomed only to wild berries, was forever changed. Having tasted the rich, savory flavor, it was as if a door to a new world had been flung open. She consumed piece after piece, and in the blink of an eye, she had finished it all. It is absolutely delicious. Yumuzi's eyes ignited with a brilliant light. She had been worried about whether he was finding enough to eat out here, yet who would have expected that he was feasting on grilled fish, while she had only brought him wild berries. Thinking of this, she wished she could find a hole to crawl into out of sheer embarrassment. How are the men who have yet to leave the tribe faring? I asked about affairs within the tribe, for I intended to return and reclaim justice from Yumuya. I had to gather information first. The tribe is currently suffering from a severe food shortage. In order to conserve rations, the tribal chief has taken those men. They were rounded up by the chief, Umuya, and exiled to a desolate, remote location. More than a dozen men are surviving on a single person's rations while still tasked with labor, making their plight increasingly dire. A few of them even attempted to practice cultivation, but they all perished in the process. I nodded. Merely scraping by on wild berries and forest greens was already an arduous struggle, but now that the food supply has dwindled further, I fear they are teetering on the brink of death. Yet upon reflection, this presents the perfect opportunity to win their loyalty. Very well, Yumuzi, the night is growing late. Follow me to retrieve some fish. I stood up, preparing to head toward the riverbank where I had stashed them. I had threaded a branch through the gills of the fish to secure them, ensuring they would neither die nor escape, but Yumuzi stood frozen in shock. What? To take several fish with us? Could it be that fish are considered of such little value? Yangj, I do not need the fish. Although I do not know how you acquired them, fish are truly precious and highly valuable commodities. No one from any of the neighboring tribes has even had the chance to taste them yet. Even if you manage to obtain a few, you should conceal them with the utmost care. The fish today was truly excellent. Thank you. You must survive. I will come to visit you again. Hearing these words, I remained silent. She continues to believe that the fish I caught were simply found. It is truly becoming unbearable. It seems I must broaden Omuzi's horizons. Omuzi, I have told you before, I will build a tribe 10,000 times stronger than Omuya. You do not believe me, do you? Then follow me. I spoke with complete sincerity. Brother Yian, I never expected you to still be thinking about building a tribe. Could it be that the blow you suffered has truly affected you this deeply? Omuzi looked at my serious expression, and the sorrow in her heart nearly overflowed. Everyone in the clan says that I have gone insane from the shock of being exiled. She has never wanted to believe it, but if I am not mad, why would I speak such unrealistic words? I looked at her pitiful expression, and my blood pressure began to rise. Must I perform a demonstration of fishing for every primitive person to see? Without another word, I took Omuzi by the hand and led her toward the riverbank. Her face flushed slightly, but she had no choice but to follow. When I lifted the fishing net from the bank, the fish leaping and thrashing appeared before her eyes. She was struck dumb with amazement. What is this? Several large fish and over a dozen small ones were jumping about wildly. Omuzi stood frozen in place, her face filled with disbelief. Brother Yi Yan, did you find this catch of fish? Omuzi asked cautiously. What do you mean found? I hauled these up using this fishing net. I said calmly, then selected a few fish from the net, skewered them with a vine, and handed them to her. Omuzi received the fish in a daze. You caught all these fish yourself? You know how to catch fish? How is that possible? Her entire worldview had collapsed. Brother Yi Yan, who was exiled from the tribe and could barely find a meal, was actually able to harvest fish from these waters that could claim a man's life. She recalled my words from earlier today, stating that I intended to build a tribe 10,000 times superior to Omuya. Could it be that I was truly that confident? Keep these fish for yourself. Remember not to let anyone else discover them. From now on, you shall not underestimate me again. Do you hear me clearly? I tapped Wu Muzi lightly on the head. Holding the large fish in her hand, she was overwhelmed by a sudden, blissful shock. When she regained her composure, all she could see before her was my handsome face and healthy, wheat-colored skin. Wu Muzi's face flushed a deep crimson. Oh, and one more thing. If you find yourself too exhausted, you might consider staying here for the night. I cast a mischievous grin at Wu Muzi, her face reddened at a pace visible to the naked eye. Her glistening eyes darted about, uncertain where to rest as she became incredibly flustered. I found it amusing, feeling as though I had successfully played a trick on her. Although the primitive people are quite open about such matters, Wu Muzi is, after all, still young, and she still knows how to be shy. However, asking her to stay was merely a jest. Even if I wished for it, it was already late in the afternoon, and with only one shelter containing a single large bed, there was not even a separate room for us to share. Wu Muzi lowered her head, her eyes fixed firmly upon her toes. I would like that, but I am still too young. Please wait until I have grown a little more. It would be acceptable once I reach the age of the tribe leader, Wu Muya. I fell into deep contemplation upon hearing these words. It is true that while Wu Muzi has yet to fully blossom, she is already a renowned beauty known far and wide. But is it truly necessary to wait until she reaches the age of that woman, Wu Muya? Thinking it over, I felt that her words carried something amiss. There was a hidden meaning behind the comparison to Wu Muya. By the time I returned to my senses, Wu Muzi had long since departed in shyness. I gazed at the distant horizon, feeling a sense of emptiness and loss, and decided I must order the trio of primitive men to construct a house for me immediately. I could no longer wait. I could not wait a moment longer. With a sigh, I crawled into the large central bed to sleep. The following day, within a narrow, cramped cave to the southwest of the tribe, the sallow-faced men remained silent. Every word felt like a burden. The cave was dark, damp, and chilling. They had refused to follow me yesterday, and now, having shamelessly chosen to stay, they were not only tasked with gathering duties, but also had their rations halved. Among the group, one man sitting cross-legged in meditation suddenly let out a cry of agony. "Oh, Mafat, he is suffering from chi deviation." The others shouted in alarm, rushing forward to shake him back to consciousness. The man named Omufat suddenly snapped his eyes open. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with crimson veins. He gasped for air in a frantic state, sweat pouring from his body like rain. He had narrowly escaped death. Omufat shuddered as he recalled the moment. If he had not managed to pull his consciousness back from the brink, he would have perished just like the other cultivators before him. We men are inferior to the women. We have no way to cultivate as rapidly as they do. We have cultivated for so long, yet we haven't even achieved what they gain in a single day. So many have already died. Are you not aware of this? Yet you still insist on cultivating. The men surrounding him trembled as they chided him. Hey, if we do not cultivate, should we simply sit and wait for death? If things continue in this manner, we are certain to face only one end. Rather than that, it is better to risk it all. Omufat offered a bitter smile as he looked at the others. He was the eldest and most experienced among them. Although his cultivation speed did not compare to the women, he was still the fastest among all the men. If he did not risk his life to achieve results in his cultivation, how would they secure food? How could he remain worthy of the brothers who looked up to him as their leader? For a long time he had been cultivating as cautiously as if walking on thin ice, yet he had only managed to remain at the first realm, possessing slightly more strength and a slightly stronger life force. Meanwhile, the women of the tribe were almost all at the second or third realm. A single hand from them could easily strike down a man. The tribal chief Omuna had even reached the fourth realm. Even a young girl like Omu too possessed a cultivation realm higher than his own. Omufat clenched his fists in self-derision. Why, as fellow human beings, must men be forced to live such miserable lives simply because of their gender? Let us go. It is time to depart for today's gathering mission. He dragged his exhausted, weary body toward the entrance of the cave. At this, perhaps it is only a matter of time, but what else can be done? Other than this path, how else are we to survive? The men looked at one another with self-deprecating smiles. If it were possible, I would truly hope for a deity to bring us sustenance. They told us that as long as we follow him, we will never have to worry about our next meal again. If that were to happen, I would be content even if I had to serve as a beast of burden. The men laughed in a wretched manner. That is surely impossible, is it not? Hey, look at who has arrived. By the order of the noble and omnipotent Patriarch Yeyan, I Yumuka have brought food to save you all. Under the glaring sunlight outside the cave, a man stood grinning, holding a fish in his left hand and another in his right. Yumuka stood tall at the entrance, leaving everyone dumbfounded. Everyone gazed at the greasy face and the bulging, powerful muscles of Yumuka, their expressions filled with astonishment and disbelief. Yumuka, were you, Yumula, not expelled from the tribe? Why is your complexion in such good health? Could it be that you have found a superior tribe to take you in? The people gathered around, their faces full of admiration. There was only one possibility they could fathom. Yumuka had found a reputable tribe. Not just a reputable tribe, but the most magnificent tribe in this world. Yumuka declared with pride. And furthermore, the tribe is willing to accept you as well. I have come here specifically for this matter. The eyes of the people instantly brightened. Is it true? Is there truly such a benevolent tribe willing to take us in? Yumuka, you are not jesting with us, are you? You are speaking the truth, right? Rest assured, they are certainly willing. The Patriarch already knew of your situation, so you may set your hearts at ease and rejoice. Yumuka chuckled. Early this morning, I instructed him to find those clansmen who did not follow us previously. The primary goal was to recruit them. He is responsible for the recruitment efforts, while Yuma Li and Yuma La follow my instructions to construct dwellings in caves. As I said, since we were well fed yesterday, we must work diligently today. Umokap, then tell us quickly, who is the tribal leader? How many people are in this tribe? The crowd asked in rapid succession, filled with curiosity. The tribe is located by the river, not far from our own, Umokap said with a mysterious air. By the river? That is not just not far, it is right beside our tribe. Everyone looked on with suspicion, wondering who this esteemed and omnipotent tribal leader could be. Umokap declared in a loud voice, causing the hearts of the anxious crowd to instantly turn cold. Yian? Has he not lost his mind after failing to endure the recent trauma? Indeed, just yesterday, he was not only insolent and disrespectful, threatening tribe leader Imokya, but he even spouted nonsense about establishing some kind of tribe. Since when does a man establish a tribe? That is right, how could a man possibly lead a tribe? Unable to hide their disappointment, the people prepared to continue their foraging outside. Do you not believe me? Tribal leader Yi Yan has commanded me to bring food here. If you wish to have food, you must join our tribal leader Yi Yan's tribe. Umokap sneered. Pa, yesterday there were only 4 of you in total. What could 4 people possibly accomplish? Even if you brought back wild fruits and forest vegetables, you cannot deceive me. The crowd expressed their disdain. Wait, this is Umfat said, staring at Umocha's hands. He was stunned by what the boy was holding. 2 creatures, as long as a forearm and as wide as the mouth of a bowl. In his youth, he had once seen a small fish leap onto the riverbank. It was only as long as a finger, yet it was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. Was what Umokya currently held in his hands not a fish? How could that be a fish? Fish were a delicacy that even the tribal leader was rarely fortunate enough to taste. Umocha had actually obtained fish by following Yayan? What kind of joke is this? The crowd spoke with contempt while looking in the direction Umafat was pointing. In Umokya's hands were 2 fish, strung together with vines, still twitching exactly like the creatures that swam in the river. Moreover, they were incredibly large. What is this? These men who had gone days without proper sustenance stared at the 2 large fish, their mouths watering uncontrollably. Is that truly fish? It is indeed fish. How could Yumaha possibly have acquired fish? How is this even possible? The tribesmen stood frozen in utter shock. Food, it's actual food. The men's eyes ignited with fervor, and they lunged toward the large fish like starving wolves descending upon their prey. It had been such a long, grueling time since they had tasted a real meal. Fish was a delicacy of the world that, for years, they could only gaze upon with envy from the riverbanks. Not to mention them, even the tribal chief had scarcely tasted such a thing. Yet the burly Yumuha merely pivoted his body, moving the fish out of reach and keeping the frantic tribesmen at bay. Hold on, you have yet to swear your allegiance to Chief Yi Yan. A moment ago you were mocking our Chief Yi Yan, calling her a madwoman. Now you wish to feast on this fish? That will not happen. Since leaving the tribe, Yumuha had eaten his fill. His complexion was healthy and radiant, and his once withered muscles had filled out. Stopping these malnourished, scrawny wretches was as easy as turning over his hand. Yumuha, let go. We have the fish right here. Why won't you let us eat? Are you still a man of our tribe or not? When the men realized they could not seize the fish by force, they turned their aggression toward Yumuha. I ceased to be a member of this tribe long ago. I am now a tribesman under Chief Yi Yan. The tribesmen furrowed their brows at the mention of her name. Every other word out of your mouth is about her. Isn't Yi Yan just a lunatic who spends her days chasing delusions? Yumuha, cease these foolish fantasies. We have the numbers here. Show some sense and behave yourself. Hand over the fish for everyone to eat, and we might consider interceding with the chief on your behalf. We'll see to it that she calms her rage and allows you to remain in the tribe. You must realize that staying within the tribe is the only way to receive the protection of the chief. Together, we can at least forage. Is that not far better than you spending your days outside, trailing after that madwoman Ye Yanje? Wu Muha could only find their words laughable. Simply scraping by to survive? Begging for scraps? You can barely fend for yourselves, yet you presume to plead for me? Must I return to lead a wretched, beastly existence like yours? Is following Yi Yan and eating fish every single day not far more satisfying? Must I return here to endure hunger and suffer in silence? To wait for death within this dilapidated hovel? Do you take me for a fool? He watched his clansmen desperately scrambling for the fish, a flicker of pity shimmering in the depths of his eyes. Had it been only yesterday, he might have found their words somewhat reasonable. But now, he had personally witnessed the prosperous days that she bestowed upon them, where they no longer needed to endure hunger or the biting cold. They could feast on fish until their stomachs were full. She could even command the divine fire. And she had even crafted a grilled fish delicacy never before heard of, simply because she desired a better meal. All of his confidence was rooted in her. It was she who taught him that a man also deserves human rights, and need not grovel or fawn before women. Heh, you dare to threaten me? Do you think I am so easily intimidated? Ever since I began following Patriarch Ye Yan, I have been able to feast on fish to my heart's content every day. By now I am even growing weary of it. If this fish did not belong to Patriarch Ye Yan, I would not even bother to stop you. Wu Muha shoved the clamoring clansmen aside and spoke with indifference. How could those gaunt, skeletal clansmen withstand such a shove? Having lacked food for so long, they possessed not a shred of strength. Now, struck by Wu Muha who fill every single day, they tumbled over, reeling and dizzy. Wu Muha, what do you think you are doing? We only wanted to eat a little fish. Was such a display truly necessary? Those who had been pushed to the ground glared at him, faces twisted with indignation. That is enough. All of you step back and check yourselves for injuries. In these times of famine, once you are wounded, you are as good as dead, and no one will be able to save you. A steady, resolute voice rang out. Wu Mufa brushed aside those who were constantly tugging at him and stepped forward. Having reached middle age, he possessed the most seniority and held the greatest influence among the men who had been cast out. Wu Muka, I heard you say earlier that you were tired of eating fish. Are you speaking the truth? Wu Muka nodded. It is the truth. I am not deceiving you. If you wish to eat fish, you must join Patriarch Yi Yan's tribe and follow his arrangements. It is as simple as that. Patriarch Yi Yan not only knows how to catch fish, but he can also summon divine fire, control the divine fire, and furthermore, he can place the fish upon it to roast. According to his words, once the fish is roasted, it becomes grilled fish. We have all tasted it, and it is far more delicious than eating raw fish by an immeasurable degree. The atmosphere inside the cave instantly turned frigid. What did you say? Do not stand there and fabricate such nonsense. Wu Muka, how dare you utter such blasphemous words? Are you not afraid of divine retribution? Has Yi Yan lost his mind? Have you gone mad along with him? From behind, members of the tribe shouted in anger. Divine fire is a punishment sent down by the gods, and wherever it passes, it turns the land into a desolate sea of flames. How can Wu Muka dare to speak such things? I am truly not lying. What purpose would I have to deceive you? Wu Muka shrugged. Wu Muka, do you realize? The words you speak are a grave disrespect to the gods. By blaspheming the deities in such a manner, are you not afraid that the gods will descend with divine punishment and incinerate both you and us? Wu Mufa, who had remained silent until now, furrowed his brow and spoke in a heavy tone. Whether or not I have invited divine retribution, I do not know, but my claim that Patriarch Yi Yan can control divine fire is absolutely factual. If you do not believe me, you may go and see it with your own eyes. Wu Mu-he looked at Wu Mu-fa, his expression incredibly grave. Wu Mu-fa gazed back at him, his face stunned. If that is the case, then you must observe closely. Yu Mu-fat let out a cold snort. He had always assumed Yu Mu-ha was an honest child, never expecting such stubborn defiance. Since you insist on being so stubborn, then we shall go and see for ourselves. Very well. Follow me. Yu Mu-ha remained unperturbed, turning away to leave the cave. The tribe was not far off, and words would never suffice. Once they witnessed his abilities, they would understand everything. Shortly thereafter, Yu Mu-ha led a group of clansmen toward the encampment by the river. From a distance, they could see Yumaluk and Yumala catching fish by the river, while I sat near the campfire not far away. Exactly as Yu Mu-ha had anticipated, the divine fire manifested within the flames of the hearth. Oh, Yu Mu-ha, you've brought guests? I lifted my head to observe the gaunt, soot-covered clansmen trailing behind Yu Mu-ha, the corners of my mouth curling upward into a faint smile. Are these not the very foundations for the prosperity of the tribe arriving before me? They don't even have a proper cave, just a makeshift shelter. I suspect a strong gust of wind would blow the whole lot of them away. The first sight that met the clansmen's eyes was the temporary shelter erected only last night. In their eyes, it was a symbol of pure weakness. Yet, as they continued to advance, everything changed. They saw me crouching before a pile of wood surrounded by stones, busily working on something. Everyone craned their necks in curiosity as a flame roared to life, the scorching heat rising into the sky accompanied by billowing black smoke. The pupils of every clansman constricted violently. The divine fire has descended. It is truly the divine fire. Run, that man Yi Yan has actually managed to conjure the divine fire. The clansmen stumbled and fell, crying out for their parents in terror. Even Yu Mu-fat, a man of extensive knowledge, felt his entire body stiffen, paralyzed, and unable to move a muscle. Before his eyes flashed the scene of the divine fire's descent, which he had witnessed with his own eyes decades ago. The entire forest had burned for 3 days and 3 nights, with black smoke rising to shroud the very sun. For dozens of miles, the sun remained hidden, and only when a torrential downpour arrived was the mountain fire finally, and barely, extinguished. When he went to investigate, every plant, beast, and human had been incinerated into ash. Nothing remained that could be distinguished. The terror of a decade ago pierced through the passage of time, striking him square in the face as his legs trembled incessantly. He wanted to flee, but he could not lift his feet. It is the divine fire. Run! The divine fire has descended, and it will surely devour everything. To think that Yi Yan could actually manifest the Mumo Fa spoke with his final reserves of strength, his voice laced with despair. Yet, at that very moment, the elder noticed something peculiar. The divine fire seemed to burn only at the center of the stone pile, without spreading outward. Clan leader Yi Yan quickly extinguished the divine fire. The clansmen are nearly frightened out of their wits. I lifted my head to gaze at the thin, soot-covered tribespeople, their eyes fixated on me as if I were a monstrous demon. I curled my lip. Without displaying my might, nothing would be accomplished. If I did not show these primitives how I could command the flames, they would continue to view me as nothing more than a madman. What was it that Ha just said? He claimed that Yi Yan could extinguish the divine fire. What? Is the divine fire not a heavenly punishment brought forth by the wrath of the gods? Unless the judgment of the heavens itself had vanished, how could it possibly be snuffed out? Indeed, to suggest that Yi Yan could extinguish it was simply impossible. The clansmen looked at one another, their faces pale with terror. I told you all, Ha said, his arms crossed over his chest with an expression of absolute confidence. Clan leader Yi Yan can control the divine fire. He can not only cause the divine fire to roar into life, but he can also command it to vanish at will. Merged with 15-17 above for flow consistency, but maintaining line count as requested 18. Ha stood with his arms crossed, a look of unshakable confidence on his face. What? To not only summon the divine fire, but also extinguish it? The entire tribe felt as though their entire worldview was collapsing. The divine fire was an instrument of divine torture. Once the gods were angered, one could not escape even by fleeing to the ends of the earth. Through Ha's words, how had it become my personal plaything? Nevertheless, looking at the terrified eyes of the people fixed upon me, I smiled with profound satisfaction. Submit obediently at my feet, and become the solid foundation upon which I shall build this patriarchal clan. With that, I used a branch to pull wood from the hearth and placed a stone atop it to smother the flames. One moment the fire was raging violently, and the next, it sputtered into white smoke and died out completely. The very instant I lifted the stone, the entire tribe cried out in unison. It is truly extinguished. The divine fire capable of scorching the heavens and burning the earth has been snuffed out by Yi Yan. He could summon the divine fire and extinguish it at will. How could such a thing be? The horror they felt was immeasurable. They could not bring themselves to believe that the divine fire, which they worshipped as a god, was being controlled as easily as a submissive toy. Yuha stood frozen in place, utterly stunned. The divine fire, which in his mind was a force capable of taking a life with ease, had become completely powerless before me. A pack of primitives who have never seen the world. What does it matter if you can control the divine fire? For our chief Yi Yan, mastering the divine fire is merely a trivial matter, yet you make such a fuss over it. Once you see Chief Yi Yan catching and grilling fish later, I suspect you will be so terrified you might faint dead away. Yuha, Umuli, and Omula looked at the petrified crowd and scoffed without the slightest restraint. The entire tribe was filled with indignation. The divine fire was ignited by Yi Yan, and it was extinguished by Yi Yan. Aside from standing there and watching, what have you three actually accomplished? Chief, the vine is moving. The voices of Umuli and Umula reached them, and it was only then that the crowd realized they had been standing by the riverbank the whole time, clutching a vine together, the very same vine connected to my fishing net. I had instructed them to catch fish, but these two primitives were staring blankly at the net, having no idea how to operate it. I had no choice but to cast the net myself, hand them the vine, and tell them to pull with all their might the moment they felt movement. If the vine moves, you pull. Understood, Chief. The two of them began to pull with all their strength. Everyone looked on, bewildered and uncomprehending. What exactly are they doing? Why are Umali and Umala pulling on a vine by the riverbank? Is there some hidden significance to this? Could they be training their physical bodies? Stop staring, they are harvesting fish. Yuha's single statement left everyone showing expressions of shock and skepticism. Harvesting fish, truly? Isn't claiming that Yi Yan can catch fish just boastful talk? Yumoha burst into loud laughter. Why would I need to brag to the likes of you regarding Chief Yi Yan? If you do not believe it, see for yourselves and you shall know. The crowd still remained unconvinced. Fine. Your Chief Yi Yan knows everything. Not only can he create and extinguish the divine fire, but he also knows how to fish. You certainly seem to know everything. Very well, it seems you can ascend to the heavens and dive into the abyss. You might as well ride tigers and capture dragons while you are at it. Have you had enough yet? Are you satisfied? The crowd displayed expressions of disdain, with some even rolling their eyes in mockery. At that very moment, Wumuli and Wumula pulled together with all their might, finally dragging the fishing net onto the shore. Patriarch, we have pulled it up. The two looked at me with glowing eyes, while the corners of my mouth curled up, revealing a look of triumph. Then open the net and show them exactly what we have retrieved from the river. Let them see for themselves whether we know how to fish or not. As you command, Patriarch. Wumuli and Wumula grinned broadly, sweat dripping from their brows. They strained to drag the net onto the bank, but what in the world was this? Is that a straw mat? It is nothing more than a tattered straw mat, and a poorly woven one at that. You must be joking, right? Is this what you call fishing? Using a straw mat to catch fish. The crowd caught sight of the net and began exchanging looks, casting jeers and insults. How ridiculous, your great patriarch Yan is actually using a straw mat to catch fish. We have straw mats in our caves too, ones much better woven than yours and without a single hole in them. What about it? Perhaps we should also throw our mats into the river and see if we can catch fish as well? Facing their ridicule, I said nothing. I simply stepped calmly toward the net and flipped it open with force. Large, fresh, and struggling fish were suddenly revealed before everyone's eyes. 4 massive fish lay there, their scales shimmering brilliantly under the sunlight. It is true, there really are fish. Why do their scales glisten so brightly under the sun? Ye Yan actually managed to catch fish. Between the divine fire and these fish, I can no longer tell if he has gone mad or if I have lost my own mind. The large fish thrashed about, occasionally leaping high into the air. The crowd stared at the struggling fish, feeling as though their entire worldview was on the verge of collapse. Heh, and to think you are all— Then, upon seeing the grilled fish later, they will likely be terrified out of their wits. I have already said it, you primitives are truly a disgrace. Wumuha looked at the swaying and stumbling crowd, letting out a long, weary sigh as if he were an old, seasoned veteran. Grilled fish, what exactly is grilled fish? The crowd heard this unfamiliar term. Wumuha had mentioned it once before, but they had not even seen a fish before, let alone cooked one. How could they possibly grasp the concept? Is this another fabrication by Ye Yan? It is entirely possible. To speak of grilled fish when they have barely seen a raw fish is utter nonsense. They had indeed seen the divine fire and the fish with their own eyes, but what this grilled fish was, they had no idea. You truly do not believe me? Everyone shook their heads. If you do not believe it, so be it. Wumuli and Wumufa, come here and process the fish. It is time to begin grilling the fish. I summoned the trio of primitives to gut the fish, scrape away the scales, remove the entrails, and skewer them onto branches. Yes, the 3 of them, hearing that they were about to eat grilled fish, had their eyes light up and scurried over to assist. Their movements were exceptionally swift. The mere memory of the rich, unforgettable flavor of last night's grilled fish made their mouths water. What are they doing? Fish are meant to be eaten raw, are they not? Why must they slice open the belly and discard the innards? Is this not a terrible waste? Indeed it is. Wumuli, Wumufa. We worked so hard to catch these fish, so why throw away a portion of the meat? To waste food is a shameful act. The grandmother of the tribe will be furious. The tribe members, witnessing the primitive trio discarding the organs, immediately became filled with indignation. For days they had been huddled in the caves, starving for 3 days and 9 meals, and now seeing such fresh fish being wasted, they stamped their feet in anger, yet they felt powerless, for the fish did not belong to them. What do you people know? The Patriarch Yan has already spoken. These are the fish viscera. They are not to be eaten, and even if one insists on consuming them, they must be removed from the fish's belly first. Otherwise, it will compromise the flavor of the grilled fish. Omu Li, Omu La let out a scoff through his nose, his face full of arrogance. A group of primitives who have never seen the world. I told you to join Chieftain Yeyan's tribe, yet you haggle over this and refuse that. You are indecisive about everything. Once the fish is grilled, there certainly won't be enough for all of you. Do not come crying in regret. The people of the tribe are already incensed. What do you mean by internal organs? What do you mean you cannot eat them? Fish is meat, and meat is meant to be eaten. Wasting food, the ancestors will never forgive you for that. The group of primitives was both angry and indignant, angry at the waste of food and incensed that those fish were not caught by them. Hearing them stomp their feet and curse, I let out a chuckle. What ancestors? Soon, once these primitives lay eyes on the grilled fish, I suspect they will beg to acknowledge me as their ancestor on the spot. Chieftain, the fish have been prepared. 4 large fish and 7 smaller ones had been diligently processed by the primitive trio. Good, take the branches, skewer the fish, and stand to the side. This chieftain is about to manifest the divine fire. I stood up and spoke calmly. The primitive trio retreated backward. I glanced at the distance. They had stepped back, and their stiff expressions, a smirk tugging at the corners of my mouth. Externally, they feign a mighty front to outsiders, but in truth, they are still somewhat fearful of the divine fire I summon. Chieftain, please ignite the divine fire. Omaha's voice rang out. I gave a slight nod, pulled out the lighter, and touched it to the campfire that had been prepped with wood. The flame spread instantly, erupting into a roaring bonfire. It has ignited once again. How terrifying, truly frightening. The divine fire is truly fearsome. Perhaps we should leave. I am so scared of the divine fire I feel like I might lose control of my bladder. Though the tribesmen were no longer as fearful as they were in the beginning, several still had trembling legs, and some even collapsed to the ground. Yan, what is he trying to achieve by manifesting the divine fire again? Omu's voice trembled as he looked from the fire to me. A look of clear bewilderment flickered in his eyes. Was I still the Yan he once knew? Omuha, Omuli, Omula, follow my instructions, drive the branches into the ground and prepare to grill the fish. As you command, tribe leader Yan. The three of them immediately thrust the branches deep into the soft earth and stomped the soil firm. Each of the three branches held one or two large fish along with several smaller ones, all of which had been cleaned. Now only the fire was needed. The fish were positioned directly over the flames. The surface of the fish gradually turned a golden hue, and the fat dripped rhythmically onto the sacred fire below. Blast, this is pure blasphemy, truly an act of profound disrespect. The tribesmen felt as if the sky were about to collapse, to think that he would use the sacred fire, which they revered as a deity, to grill fish. Flee quickly. Yi Yan has shown such disrespect to the sacred fire. He will surely face divine retribution. It is certain we must run at once. Some tried to scramble away in a panic, but their legs had grown stiff from prolonged terror, making it impossible to lift their feet. They collapsed in a heap. We are doomed. Having witnessed this act of sacrilege against the divine, heaven will surely punish all of us as well. There is no escaping this fate. Omufa swallowed hard, uttering the words in a voice trembling with extreme fear. That madman Yi Yan, he is undoubtedly a lunatic. Omu Li is also a madman. Everyone near Yi Yan has lost their minds. They have all gone insane. The tribesmen were so terrified they verged on a mental breakdown, their laughter turning into a crazed, self-deprecating mockery. But I had no concern for what they were thinking. I was focused intently on the fire and the sizzling fish. Even the slightest error would ruin the flavor. This was a matter of utmost importance. The tribe leader's serious expression is truly handsome. Only he possesses the skill to master the flavor of the grilled fish. We believe that the tribe leader will certainly create the most exquisite grilled fish. The primordial trio looked at me with faces full of adoration. The fish is done. Follow my command and remove them immediately, I shouted, and the three of them sprang up, exerting their strength to pull the roasting branches from the fire and retreating a distance away. Does everyone smell that aroma? The tribesmen, drowning in their endless terror, suddenly heard someone whisper, "It's..." The crowd stood in bewilderment. From where was this intoxicating aroma emanating? It seemed to be drifting from the direction of Yi Yan and his companions. The tribespeople looked toward them, witnessing a sight they would never be able to forget for the rest of their lives. They saw fish unlike any they had ever encountered before. After undergoing a process they deemed nothing but wasteful, and having been placed upon the sacred fire in a display of utter blasphemy, the catch now emitted an overwhelming fragrant scent. Though they knew in their hearts that this was an act of sacrilege, the aroma caused their resolve to crumble. The primal instinct of those who had gone days without food clashed violently with their reverence for the gods. Haha, they must be dying of hunger by now. If they watch us devour all this roasted fish, they might just lose their minds on the spot. Ha ha ha. The primordial trio held branches skewered with fragrant golden-brown fish. Each of them savored the scent, but none dared to take a bite, all waiting for my command. You may eat now, but do so slowly. Remember, you must eat with grace so that our future tribespeople can observe closely. Let them understand the prosperity and might of our patriarchal tribe. I looked toward the conflicted tribespeople not far off and offered a faint smile. Very well, we shall begin. This is exquisite. The eyes of all three men lit up with brilliance. They tore into the roasted fish. Having labored all morning, they had been waiting only for this moment. I tore off a morsel and placed it in my mouth, chewing slowly. The fish fat melted across my palate. There was no need for pretense. Once one tastes the roasted fish, it is impossible to feel anything other than pure bliss. I tore off another piece and nodded slightly. It was satisfactory. At the very least, we no longer had to consume raw fish or worry about parasites and illness. Meanwhile, the tribespeople nearby watched our expressions of sheer delight as we savored the meal, hearing the crisp crunch of the skin as we chewed and inhaling that irresistible aroma. Their pupils dilated in shock. Their worlds seemed to collapse. The sounds of their ravenous stomachs growling filled the air, and only one thought remained in their minds. Damn it, I am starving. So this was the roasted fish they spoke of? The creature prepared upon the sacred flame, an act of blasphemy, was actually this fragrant. It smells so divine. It smells so divine. I can bear this no longer. I crave it so deeply. How can something possibly smell this divine? The tribesmen began to lose their composure. Who would have thought that desecrating the sacred fire could produce such a delicacy? Will the gods not be struck with wrath? Ah, what a pity. Our chieftain, Yi Yan, was kind enough to invite a few people to join our tribe and partake in the grilled fish. Yet his benevolence was mistaken for a wolf's heart, and he was even branded a madman. Alas, now we can only stand by and watch. Wu Muhei feigned a sigh of lamentation. Upon hearing these words, the tribesmen felt as if the heavens and earth were collapsing upon them. When Wu Muhei came to seek them out earlier, why did they refuse to believe him? He had even brought 2 large fish along. Why did they not trust him? Now that the grilled fish lies before their eyes, yet remains beyond their reach, it is too late for regrets. If only they could taste a single morsel, they would sooner serve as beasts of burden than be treated like mere stud animals in Wu Muya's tribe. At least here there is food to sustain them. Only the final scraps of the grilled fish remained. I shall ask one last time, is there anyone who wishes to join our tribe? This is the final time I will extend the offer. Once this moment passes, there will be no second chance. I swallowed a piece of the grilled fish and spoke calmly, and the very air seemed to grow stagnant. I was waiting for them to fall into my trap, to join my tribe and become the foundation for building a patrilineal clan. The tribesmen fell into a state of turmoil. Wu Muya's tribe treated them like cattle, while my tribe appeared, in every respect, to be a gathering of lunatics. Just as the others were hesitating, I spoke. I wish to join. Chieftain Yayan, I wish to join as well. The remaining tribesmen, disregarding all consequences, rushed toward me, hastily adopting a posture of submission. The others stood frozen in shock. Was it not said that they would live and die together, advancing and retreating as one? What time was left for hesitation? They surged forward immediately, jostling in fear of being left behind. Chieftain Yayan, Chieftain, from this day forth, you are our leader. Chieftain, please, accept us. We were wrong to doubt you in the past. I beg of you, please show mercy to us. Nearly 10 clansmen came sprinting over, prostrating themselves upon the ground. Ding. Congratulations, host. You have gained 1 new clansman and received 10 patriarchal clan contribution points. Ding. Congratulations, host. You have gained 1 new clansman and received 10 patriarchal clan contribution points. Congratulations, host. You have gained 1 new clansman and received 10 patriarchal clan contribution points. The host previously possessed 135 contribution points, and now 9 system notifications rang out in his mind in succession. 90 contribution points. Have they not arrived just in time? Pardon me, clan leader, is there any grilled fish left? A timid voice from a clansman reached his ears from the side. Seeing the longing in their eyes, I could not help but laugh heartily. Omukshia, Omuli, Omufa, quickly distribute the grilled fish to our new clansmen. Let them see for themselves just how correct a decision they have made. Understood, clan leader Yi Yan. Wow, so this is grilled fish. The grilled fish was made by profaning the divine fire. The clansmen looked at the fish in their hands, their eyes gleaming brightly as they ate until their faces were smeared with grease, swaying and leaning, feeling as if they had ascended to the heavens. Meanwhile, Omufa held his grilled fish in the corner, his expression complex. Never did he expect things to reach this point. In order to survive, one would actually go so far as to profane the gods. To be able to create such a thing truly requires some degree of capability. But he has truly gone mad. Omufa looked up at the sky and sighed, then took a bite of the grilled fish. He had only joined my tribe out of desperation. Being older and having experienced much more, he would not be easily mesmerized by a mere grilled fish. If he had the choice, he would rather eat wild berries for the rest of his life than consume this substance that profanes the divine. When will my cultivation be able to advance to the next level? If I can achieve results in my cultivation soon, once my strength surges, I will lead the clansmen away from this insane, god-profaning tribe. Omufa heaved a long sigh and assumed a meditative posture, only to discover that the number of clansmen in the host tribe had increased to 10, unlocking the orthodox cultivation system of the patriarchal clan. In this world, for women, cultivating for a single day and traveling 1,000 miles is a simple feat. However, if a man attempts to cultivate using the methods designed for women, taking even a single step becomes an ordeal. At best, one risks key deviation, and at worst, the body may shatter and perish. The system and the orthodox cultivation techniques of the matriarchal clan were automatically etched into the host's mind. The host may begin cultivation at any time. The system's voice resonated. I had long since set my sights on the most senior and prestigious member of the clan, Yu Mufa. Among the men of the tribe, he naturally possessed the highest cultivation talent, second only to myself. Yet, he was severely restricted by the feminine cultivation methods. His cultivation realm had remained stagnant for a long time. Having suffered chi deviation multiple times and nearly losing his life, it was only by sheer fortune that he had survived until now. At this moment, the orthodox cultivation methods intended for men were deeply imprinted within my mind. I understood that if I could secure the loyalty of Yu Mufa, the younger clan members who looked up to him as a father figure would naturally become more aligned with me. According to the system, the initial path of cultivation consists of 9 realms, with each stage offering a clear and significant increase in strength. Men in the clan who have not yet embarked on the path of cultivation possess only ordinary strength. Yumufa is at the first realm, where his strength has increased by 1 to 2 times. Most of the women in the tribe are at the second realm, possessing more than double that power. Yumuya has even reached the 4th realm, and so it continues up to the 9th realm. And beyond that lie the realms the system has carved into my mind, realms that I had never witnessed before. One's talent is determined by their innate blood chi. To my astonishment, I discovered that among everyone, regardless of gender, my innate blood chi was the most abundant, far surpassing all others. Next was Yumuya, followed by a few women with exceptional talent, and only then came Yumufa, and Yumuhe, who also possesses decent innate blood chi among the younger generation. As I practiced the orthodox manual for the first time, the blood within me surged at a dizzying speed. My entire body began to heat up, and in an instant I had stepped into the first realm. The very same realm that Yumufa struggled for over a decade to reach using the wrong methods. You are still stuck at the first realm, are you not? I approached Yumufa, who was sitting in the corner, and spoke indifferently. Do you know what I am doing? I not only know that, but I also know that you have suffered from key deviation multiple times, nearly losing your life. I also know that you have been trapped at the first realm for a very, very long time. I cast a glance at him. Do you understand? Everything you are currently doing is nothing more than wasted effort. Yumufa stood stunned. Most men in the tribe possess very weak cultivation talent, and their understanding of cultivation is severely limited. Only those with a shred of aptitude like him are taught a few techniques by the older generation. Yet he never imagined that I would be privy to such knowledge as well. How do you know that I am trapped at the first realm? Yu Mufat looked at me, finding himself unable to fathom my depths. Stop cultivating in such a manner. Everything that has been passed down, everything the elders of the clan taught you, are cultivation manuals suited exclusively for women. Unless you find your own path forward, no matter how hard you cultivate, it will be to no avail. Furthermore, you risk a cultivation deviation which will lead to your body exploding in certain death. Do you have a way? Yu Mufat asked, probing for answers. Dying gone, it is not that I am short-sighted, and do not blame me for speaking bluntly. I see your fishing and your divine fire. These are essentially nothing more than parlor tricks to garner attention. The idea of establishing a patrilineal clan is even more impossible. Since your ancestors' time, no, even before I was born, women have been the ones who truly rule this world. How old are you to think that performing such stunts could ever replace them? Yu Mufat looked me straight in the eyes and said, you are free not to believe me. But if you continue to cultivate like this, your body will be nothing more than a leaf adrift in a vast ocean. Even if the waves have not yet swallowed you, it is only a matter of time. Now, sit down. Cultivate? I can tell you exactly how you should proceed. I sat cross-legged opposite Yu Mufat and began to cultivate according to the method the system had ingrained in my mind. What did you say? You want to teach me how to cultivate? A look of astonishment and disbelief crossed Yu Mufat's face. He appraised me thoroughly. Having never seen me cultivate before, he believed that no matter how great my talent was, it was impossible for me to instruct him. Daingon, in the end, you are still just a child. I initially thought you possessed some measure of skill, but now it seems you have merely picked up some heterodox, wicked arts from somewhere. If you want to deceive children like Yumuha, Yumuluk, or Yumulap, fine, they are only looking to earn a living. Everyone has their own interests, but regardless, you should not use these petty tricks to deceive me. Within the tribe, I have never once seen you cultivate. Now you have the audacity to claim you want to instruct me in cultivation. Do you not find that ridiculous? Yumufat chuckled and shook his head, having no intention to say anything more. He held his breath, focused his mind, and began to circulate his vital energy. The tribe has strict laws. Once a person begins cultivation, no one is permitted to disturb them, under penalty of death. I looked at Yu Mufat before me and let out a sigh, shaking my head. This uncle is truly something. He has spent half his life practicing methods meant for women and has achieved nothing. Furthermore, he is highly susceptible to cultivation deviation, which could cause him to explode and perish. It is truly a waste of life. He entered a deep meditative state to cultivate, no longer paying me any mind, yet his senses and tactile awareness remain. Without another word, I used my finger to strike a pressure point on Yu Mufat's body, following the system's guidance. His flowing vital energy was instantly blocked, and Yu Mufat's entire body turned a deep visible crimson. He was seething with rage. Cultivation is already fraught with the danger of deviation, and being disturbed only increases the likelihood of death. The tribe had just established the rule against interference, yet I dared to disrupt him at such a critical moment. Was this not a direct attempt on his life? He clenched his fists, his veins bulging with fury. If not for the fact that he could not stop until his vital energy had finished circulating, he would have gladly struck me dead on the spot. Yun Fufat, I will say this once more, your cultivation method is flawed. I see that the newly joined tribesmen respect you, which is why I have come to offer you some guidance. Regardless of the outcome, I am only teaching you this once. If you do not take this to heart, even if you beg me in the future, I will not utter another word. Disregarding whatever Yu Mufat might be thinking, I began to apply pressure to his meridians according to orthodox cultivation methods, forcibly altering the trajectory of the vital energy within his body, shifting it from a feminine technique to a masculine one. Yu Mufat, initially consumed by fury, suddenly felt the flow of energy within his body begin to shift, growing increasingly wondrous. His rage gradually dissolved into confusion. What is this brat doing? It felt as if his body no longer belonged to him, refusing to obey his commands. Instead, it flowed according to the path traced by my fingers, moving with ever-increasing speed. Yu Mufat felt a deep sense of dread. He was completely unable. I could only exert my utmost effort to maintain his vital energy and ensure no complications arose. I pressed 2 fingers against his body in rapid succession. While his talent was the greatest among the men of the clan, there remained a significant gap compared to the women. Even if the cultivation method were altered, I feared he could reach no higher than the second level at most. As my finger struck the final acupuncture point, the vital energy within Yu Mufat finally completed a full circulation along the correct path. If he manages to memorize this, he will finally escape the desperate struggle for survival he faces every day. But if he fails to remember it, that is no longer any concern of mine. I exhaled a long breath. Upon opening my eyes, I saw that the look in Yu Mufat's gaze had completely shifted. What have you done to me? Why does my vital energy refuse to obey my command after your fingers merely touched my body? Yu Mufat sensed the internal shift within his own body, and a surge of dread welled up in his heart. If the flow of vital energy is obstructed, it is fatal. In other words, I could have ended his life just moments ago. I have already told you, your cultivation method is flawed, so I used pressure point manipulation to correct it for you. Can you feel how the circulation of your vital energy has changed? I spoke indifferently. The flow of energy, the method itself, they have changed, have they not? How could that be? You only touched my body. Yu Mufat stood with an expression of astonishment and skepticism, keenly observing the current of energy flowing through his veins. There remained a small amount of residual energy from his cultivation that had yet to permeate his entire body. In the very moment he sensed it, he became rooted to the spot. The speed of his energy circulation was several times faster than it had been previously. Not only had the speed increased, but the circulation itself had become far more fluid and efficient. He instinctively tried to memorize the new path the energy was taking, but by the time the last of the residual energy dissipated, he found he was unable to fully commit it to memory. To think it has truly become faster, how is this possible? Yu Mufat realized that this young man had perceived the flow of energy throughout his entire body with a single glance, and in the blink of an eye, had redirected it through the use of acupuncture points. With the speed increased several-fold, Yu Mufat was completely stunned, followed immediately by an overwhelming sense of dread. He suddenly snapped his head up to look at me, his pupils contracting violently as a cold sweat broke out across his skin. His many years of experience had always led him to take pride in being the foremost among the men of his clan, but at this moment he realized with alarm that he could no longer fathom the depth of this young man. How can this be? I have cultivated for over a decade. How can I be inferior to a junior like you? Hey, Yu Mufat, there is no such thing as impossible. Now that you have arrived at my tribe, you must sincerely bow your heads and pledge your allegiance to me. Accept me as your tribe leader, and I shall personally lead you in establishing a formidable patriarchal society. By then, I will trample every woman who has looked down upon me beneath my feet. You only need to assist me and serve as the foundation upon which I build this patriarchal order. I nonchalantly brushed the dust from my clothes, stood up, and looked down at him from above. As for how I will accomplish this, it is naturally through the use of my grand system. Haha, what did you say? Are you so traumatized from being expelled from your tribe that you have lost your mind and are speaking nonsense? Could it be that you truly intend to establish a tribe and then elevate the status of men above that of women? Yu Mufat's eyes were filled with absolute terror. The status of men rising above women? In this world, the strong prey upon the weak, the powerful act as kings. Regardless of gender, whichever side is stronger holds the right to speak. Because I possess the means to allow you to exert a greater influence than women in this era, the tribe we build shall be known as a patriarchal clan. I wore a triumphant smile. Yu Mufat, do you understand now? Choosing to submit to me is not a temporary scheme to recuperate, but the only path you are compelled to take. I know that you still cling to your pride, but it does not matter. Once you are truly willing to submit to me, I will cause your life force to circulate at a much higher level. Having said that, I pretended to turn and leave. Tribe leader Yi Yan, I am willing. I am willing to accept you as the leader of the tribe. Before I could fully turn around, a heavy thud echoed from behind me. I turned back to see Yu Mufat kneeling and kowtowing. Tribe leader Yi Yan, I Yu Muf, thank you. Your guidance today has truly opened my eyes. I was shallow-minded in the past. From this moment on, I sincerely acknowledge you as my tribe leader. From here on, Yu Mufat shall follow your every command. He bowed his head deeply to the ground, filled with profound regret. Had he not rushed to conclude his circulation of life force during his cultivation, he might have grasped that altered path. His cultivation progress would have increased manifold, but in this world, there are no what-ifs. Observing his earnest and sincere demeanor, I gave a faint smile. Very good, I have subdued another. Congratulations to the host for recruiting another clansman. Patriarchal clan contribution points +1. Yu Mufat, go and summon all the clansmen who are capable of cultivation to gather here. I shall teach you the correct cultivation methods for men, and you will be responsible for imparting these techniques to the tribesmen. Do you understand? Yu Mufat felt a surge of joy in his heart. This is wonderful, chieftain. I shall immediately summon those in the tribe with even a shred of cultivation talent. They will surely be immensely grateful to you. He scrambled up from the ground in excitement and departed, for he understood exactly what the true method of cultivation signified. If the youth of the tribe could learn it, even in times of food scarcity, they would at least no longer be viewed as mere livestock or monkeys by the women. By the campfire, Yu Mufat returned, leading 3 or 4 tribesmen considered to have talent for cultivation. Yu Mufat sat cross-legged to begin his practice, with the young tribesmen gathering around to watch, while the others observed from a distance. What does Chieftain Deepangan intend to do? I heard he wants to teach Yu Mufat how to cultivate. Cultivate? Isn't that something only those with great innate talent can achieve? Have we ever even seen Chieftain Deepangan cultivate himself? Why would Yu Mufat allow Chieftain Deepangan to instruct him? Cultivation is no trivial matter. If one fails, their body could explode, resulting in a gruesome death. The tribesmen whispered amongst themselves. Listen closely and watch clearly, all of you. Chieftain Deepangan is about to personally instruct us in the path of cultivation. As long as we follow Chieftain Deepangan's methods, our cultivation speed can eventually match that of the women. Yu Mufat sat cross-legged on the ground and spoke in a low voice. As these words were spoken, the very air seemed to freeze. Uncle Yu Mufat, are you feeling quite all right? How could the cultivation speed of us men ever hope to surpass that of the women? How could that be possible? Do not joke. The women require only a single day of practice to achieve what takes us several days to accomplish. I know Chieftain Deepangan is formidable, and that he can catch fish and manifest divine fire, and even prepare such delicious grilled fish. I acknowledge that he is truly capable. But no matter how exceptional he is, he cannot bridge the We cultivators must struggle bitterly on the thin line between life and death, constantly facing the risk of suffering chi deviation or exploding into a bloody mist, yet our cultivation base barely increases at all. But the women only need to practice a little while they sleep to restore their spirit, and their cultivation increases as well. How can we ever compare to them? The young tribesmen spread their hands in helplessness. Although they possess some natural talent, they do not toil as diligently as Umuk-Fat, yet their cultivation cannot even match the women's, and they are prone to chi deviation. Why must we suffer through such hardship? The tribesmen watching from the sidelines all agreed. That is correct. Even a leader as formidable as Patriarch Deepangon could not possibly cultivate better than women. Women are truly terrifying. It is said that they only need to cultivate perfunctorily for a few days to equal what we men toil for an entire month to achieve. Indeed, it is truly too unfair. Umuk-Fat could no longer endure it. Just as he was about to stand up and speak, I pressed him back down. It matters not whether they believe it. Soon enough, they will have no choice but to believe. For now, just sit quietly and circulate your blood and chi. I will guide you. Understood, Patriarch Deepangon, Umuk-Fat replied, overjoyed. He sat cross-legged in meditation and began to circulate his blood and chi. I tapped his body once more, following the same sequence of acupoints as before. Only this time the pressure was significantly deeper, and the application of force more steady, intended to help him memorize the flow of chi. Umuk-Fat actually dares to let Patriarch Deepangon guide his cultivation. He has gone mad, surely he has gone mad. This is not the same as catching or grilling fish. If a mistake is made during cultivation, it will cost one their life. How could Uncle Umuk-Fat possibly agree to this? The tribesmen were all trembling in terror until, under my guidance, the blood and chi within Umuk-Fat began to surge like a rushing gale. His meridians expanded and solidified, and finally the blood and chi that had been stagnant for over a decade erupted forth. A breakthrough in realm, the second realm. Umuk-Fat let out a long shout, his entire body feeling immensely refreshed. I have actually reached the second realm. He stared at his own hands with a look of astonishment, crying out loudly. The atmosphere turned deathly silent. It is not that only women can reach the second realm and beyond. Rather, your methods of cultivation are entirely incorrect. I can show you all what the true method of cultivation is. Simply cultivate according to my method, and your cultivation base will rise with unshakable stability. With that simple instruction, I concluded my guidance for Umuk-Fat. I remarked indifferently, for the cultivation technique the system implanted into my mind could significantly accelerate a man's rate of progress. It is merely that they may fail to grasp the underlying principles, even if they recall the sensation of their blood and chi circulating after one demonstration. The direction of their cultivation will inevitably drift, and if they rely solely on intuition, they will forget the process sooner or later. For now, I must focus on raising the strength of my tribesmen so they possess the combat capability to resist the women under that Hag-U-Muna. I regained my composure and scanned my surroundings, only to find an unnatural heavy silence. This is not right. Usually, after an act of this magnitude, someone should have jumped out in shock by now. Why is there not a single sound even now? How could this be? Suddenly, a voice laden with difficulty rang out, and the expressions of the tribesmen turned utterly unsightly. How is this possible? Since the beginning of time, it has never been heard of that a man could reach the second realm. Men are only capable of reaching the first realm, are they not? Patriarch Deepangon, what manner of divine being are you really? First you taught us to fish, then you revealed the divine fire, and now you have mastered cultivation. How can you commit such blasphemous and rebellious acts? The faces of the tribesmen were filled with dread and unease. The rules and common knowledge that defined their worldview were being dismantled by me piece by piece. They did not even dare to breathe heavily. They bowed their heads, refusing to look at me, for in their eyes my silhouette had become that of a monster desecrating their gods. I took a deep breath. Feeling dizzy is to be expected, but hold on to that fear. A time will come when I shall make you tremble far more than this. Only those who can accept these truths will be worthy of becoming citizens of the patriarchal society I intend to forge in the future. I stated calmly, for these primitive people have never seen the world, which is to be expected. Their world is bound by far too many taboos and constraints. Everything I do that is righteous is seen through their eyes as an act of rebellion. Uncle Umuk-Fat has actually reached the second realm. Just like that, he has attained the second realm. Uncle Umuk-Fat, who has cultivated arduously for over a decade, drifting between life and death for years. He has truly reached the second realm. That is the second realm. That is a realm only women were ever meant to attain. I never imagined Deepangon could truly help Uncle Umuk-Fat reach this level. Patriarch Deepangon has actually succeeded. Exclamations of shock and disbelief echoed in my ears. Heavens above. Truly, Patriarch Yan is omnipotent. Not only does he possess the skill to catch and grill fish, but he also dares to alter our cultivation techniques in such a world-shaking manner. Cultivation was passed down to us by the matriarch herself. Yet, the moment Patriarch Yan declared his intent to change them, even the three primitive elders who supported me most showed expressions of sheer terror. They felt that no matter the circumstances, I always managed to shock them when they least expected it. The matriarch will surely descend to punish us for this. I pray for the matriarch's protection. Please do not bring judgment upon Patriarch Yan. He is truly a virtuous man and he even grills fish for us to eat. Is it that delicious? He will only modify the cultivation technique for Uncle Wu Mufa alone. For Uncle Wu Mufa and him alone. Matriarch, please, I beg you to forgive him. Wu Muli and Wu Mula were praying devoutly to the matriarch. The truth is, I intended to modify the cultivation method solely for Wu Mufa. All clansmen who have practiced cultivation come here. Wu Mufa has committed the circulation path of the vital energy I guided to memory. From here on, he will guide the flow of everyone's vital energy onto the correct path. In other words, he will teach you all the refined cultivation method I bestowed upon Wu Mufa. A single command echoed from afar, striking the trio who had just been praying for me as if they were hit by lightning. Does Patriarch Yi Yan truly intend for us to learn this new cultivation method as well? Could it be that we too might be able to ascend to the next realm just like Uncle Wu Mufa? How could such a thing be possible? Is the cultivation method the Patriarch taught to Wu Mufa truly universal for all of us? A wave of agitation rippled through the crowd. Indeed, this cultivation method was taught to us by Patriarch Yi Yan. Every man among you is capable of cultivation. Furthermore, by utilizing this new technique, our speed will be nothing less than, or perhaps even superior to, that of the women in our tribe. With just a little more diligent effort, we will surely surpass those women who have always treated us like mere beasts of burden. After stabilizing his vital energy following his breakthrough, Wu Mufa stood up from the ground and shouted loudly to his clansmen. At this moment, Wu Mufa's eyes shone with a brilliant radiance, as if a fire were burning. Clan Chief Deepangan shouted sternly. After learning this cultivation technique, will I no longer be referred to as a male ape? Clan Chief, I also wish to cultivate. I do not want to be looked upon by women as if I were nothing but trash. I feel the same. I must cultivate with all my might to reclaim the dignity I have lost. The entire crowd grew agitated, their cheers nearly reaching the heavens. I nodded and clenched my fists. I must rapidly elevate the cultivation base of my clansmen and immediately initiate the plan to conquer the Omuak Nye tribe. I have not forgotten the humiliation of being driven from the tribe. At the Omuak Nye tribe's river, inside a cavern, a woman with fair delicate ankles adorned with a beast-tooth anklet sat with a cold expression. The beautiful woman, surrounded by female clansmen, was none other than the chieftain of the Omuak Nye tribe. The men in the southwestern corner of the cavern have all disappeared. Let them die. It is for the best. They cannot even gather enough food and only waste our rations. Let them perish. It is better to be rid of the burden. Omuak Na's expression remained ice-cold. A female clansman looked troubled. Bowing her head, she said, "No, clan chief, they are not dead. They have left the cavern, have they not?" Omuak furrowed her brows. It is currently the scorching season. Berries and wild greens are becoming increasingly scarce. Furthermore, our tribe has already gathered most of what was available. Those male apes, unable to find food, could not stay put in the cavern and have rushed out to court death. Ah, the weather is stifling. Without food, they cannot travel far. They must certainly be lingering nearby. Dispatch a team of stronger male apes to hunt them down. Send the third team. What if they have discovered a new berry forest or an abundance of wild greens, and that is why they left? If that is true, we shall seize everything from those scrawny male apes and bring it back here. Omuak smirked slightly, crossing her legs and shifting her posture. The beast-tooth anklets chimed against each other, exuding an air of confidence, elegance, and nobility. At the side of the cavern, Omuak too heard that the third team was being sent to find me. A flicker of anxiety flashed through her eyes. On another beautiful sunny day, I awoke in my makeshift shelter. The place where we reside lacks natural caverns, so we can only erect shelters. In recent days, the number of clansmen has steadily increased, necessitating the construction of more shelters. All resources and manpower are currently funneled into building temporary lodgings, leaving us no time to construct more permanent dwellings. While there is much left to be done, we at least have the people now. As for food, we have secured a supply of fish. Once a sturdy shelter is erected and the tribe is settled, we can continue to develop our production. The issue remains that I lack the knowledge to construct a truly fortified dwelling. The tribesmen I have currently recruited were all members of the fourth team before we departed from the tribe. They possess little skill in the art of construction. Before leaving the Omuna tribe, there were a total of 4 teams of men, each consisting of roughly 10 people, with the third team being the most proficient at building shelters. Their status within the tribe was also significantly higher. Even though they are all viewed as mere male apes, there exists a hierarchy of discrimination even among these 7 tribes. Our fourth team occupies the lowest rung of that social ladder. System 66 has detected a keyword. The system is now searching for items within the contribution point store for the host. With the shelter construction kit, the host only needs to gather the necessary raw materials, and the kit will facilitate the creation of a private, secure, and highly durable shelter. This item costs 100 contribution points. Does the host wish to make the exchange? I was overjoyed. No sooner had the thought crossed my mind than the system congratulated me on a successful purchase. Once the host utilizes the shelter construction kit, the system will automatically complete the construction of the shelter within the day. Brother Deep, a feminine voice rang out from not far away. It was Omutu running toward me, breathing heavily. Brother Deepangan, the chieftain Omuna has discovered that you men have left the tribe. She suspects that you have found a berry forest and new edible wild vegetables. She has now dispatched the men of the third team here to seize them. Brother Deepangan, you must take the fish and flee at once. If they are stolen, we are finished. She spoke with great anxiety, struggling to catch her breath. I looked at her, a peculiar expression crossing my face. Omutu, which team did you say was coming? The third team, brother. Is something wrong? I suddenly broke into a laugh. The third team, you say? Isn't that the very group of men most skilled in building shelters? Their arrival is perfectly timed. With them here, the speed of gathering construction materials will surely increase by a significant margin. They have arrived at the perfect moment. I was just worrying that they might not come. Rest assured, Omutu, I will be just fine. They are powerless against me. Why are you jesting? The third squad eats much better than you lot in the fourth squad. At the very least, they have rice to sustain themselves. Furthermore, they have the backing of Omunya. Relying solely on your fish will not be enough to sway them. They will simply plunder all your fish and deliver them to Chief Omunya. Brother Deep Dawn, you must flee immediately. Omuk grew anxious, pleading with me to leave. She assumed that because I had caught a few fish, I actually believed I could stand against Omuna. However, Omuna has already reached the fourth realm. With a multitude of loyal tribesmen under her command, she is fundamentally untouchable. As she pondered further, her anxiety mounted and tears welled up in her eyes. Yet I gently patted her head and calmly replied, "Do not fret, I have my own method. Besides, even if the fish are seized, it is of no consequence. I possess more than enough capability to survive. Cease your worrying and simply wait and watch. I possess true confidence now. I have the tools to construct a base in this world. A formidable base is the bedrock of a tribe's strength. The more secure it is, the easier it becomes to protect our provisions and our people. Once the base is built and the fish are secured within, the third squad will not even be able to lay a finger on a single scale. Chief Omunya will surely punish me. She forbade me from seeking you out. I am on the verge of being punished." Omuk too looked at me with resentment, her expression conveying that I had disregarded her warnings entirely. I let out a hearty laugh. "It is of no concern. You may tell her that you were coerced by Deepinga." Upon returning to the base, Omuk followed behind, claiming she was worried that my boasts would invite disaster upon myself and that she wished to offer her assistance. I gladly permitted her to inspect the tribe. I require wood, sand, and stone as much as can be gathered. Omukha, Omukluk, Omukla, the three of you are responsible for leading the tribesmen in this task. The third squad is about to arrive to seize our fish. I require you to gather these materials to fortify our base and protect our food supply. You must proceed with the utmost haste. If even half a fish is taken by that woman Omium, it will be a loss for all of us. Understood, Patriarch Deep and Gone, the clansmen shouted in unison. Their fourth squad held the lowest status within the tribe, enduring countless indignities and slights. Now that they had finally secured a place to rest and recover their strength, the thought of Omunya coming to steal their food was truly insufferable. Patriarch Deep and Gone, I have followed your instructions and stationed guards at the tribal gate. Once the people from the opposing tribe arrive, I will sound the alarm immediately and intercept them. The low, gravelly voice of Omukfat resonated. I looked at him and nodded. Yesterday, after concluding our cultivation guidance session, I had assigned him and several young clansmen to the guard squad. I did not expect them to establish the guard post within a single night. Previously, the women of the tribe had shown no interest in the guard posts. It would typically take days to complete a single post. Yet Omukfat had finished it in just one day. Guard posts within the tribe had always been built and manned by the women. It is a pity that I was never permitted to participate in the construction, so I am somewhat unfamiliar with it. Had I been involved, it might have been completed even faster. Omukfat hung his head in embarrassment. "You have done well enough." I waved my hand dismissively. "Patriarch Deep and Gone, it will likely take several days to procure the timber. We fear we may not be able to finish in time." The voice of a young clansman rang out. "Indeed, Omuna's tribe is not far from our own. We expect them to arrive soon. Furthermore, we must gather construction materials and then construct the shelter. Will there be enough time?" The clansmen were deeply anxious. You need not worry, clansmen. Since you have joined my tribe, as your patriarch, I will naturally pave the way for you. I have already prepared the necessary tools. They will undoubtedly allow you to work with manifold efficiency." I curled my lips into a faint smirk. Ding! Sensing the host's intent, the system activated, cutting trees, excavating earth, and breaking stone, harvesting resources for the host. Axes and shovels, each costing 5 contribution points to exchange. Calculating the required quantity of tools for the host. Host requires 3 axes, costing 45 contribution points. Host currently has 95 contribution points remaining. Do you wish to proceed with the exchange? Before the thought even fully formed, the exchange was successful. 3 axes, 3 shovels, and 3 hammers had materialized nearby for the host. "Chief Yan, are the tools you spoke of made of stone? We are saying that even with stone, we cannot keep up with the pace, even the sharpest stones available. It takes 2 men and half a day just to fell a single tree, and when it comes to digging, we can only rely on our bare hands. How could this possibly increase our efficiency tenfold? You tribesmen understand nothing. Why is it so difficult for you to trust my words? If you do not believe me, turn around and see for yourselves what lies behind you." Someone turned to look and saw, not far away, a pile of strangely shaped, incredibly sharp tools resting silently on the ground. The tribesmen knew at a glance that these were far sharper than the finest stones they had ever wielded. "Chief, these are..." The tribesmen stared at the tools, which featured long wooden handles tipped with sharp, unfamiliar materials. The material at the tip reflected the sunlight. It was undoubtedly sharper than any stone in existence. "These are respectively called axes, shovels, and hammers. I spoke calmly. What you see at the tips is not stone, it is iron, a type of metal. For instance, this hammer can easily shatter even the hardest of boulders. You must use them with caution. The slightest negligence will lead to injury and bloodshed. The tribesmen looked on in bewilderment. I did not bother explaining the nature of metal further. Instead, I simply picked up a hammer, aimed it at a stubborn rock protruding from the earth, and prepared to strike. Is Chief Yan intending to strike that rock? That boulder is notoriously hard. We have tripped over it many times and have long wished to be rid of it. But alas, it is far too dense. No stone tool we possess can shatter it. Everyone drew a sharp breath. Could the hammer Chief Yi Yan spoke of truly break this rock? Even if it were as miraculous as the chief claimed, surely it could only barely manage to crack it, right? That boulder was the hardest stone they had ever encountered. The hammer descended. Crash! A deafening roar echoed, startling everyone so severely their eyes bulged in shock. The boulder, once renowned for its impenetrable hardness, had shattered into countless fragments. The tribesmen stared at the scene before them, their hearts skipping a beat. The gleaming hammer remained unscathed, while the stubborn rock lay pulverized. They dared not imagine what would happen if the hammer struck a person. Flesh and bone would surely be crushed to dust. Turning back to look at the axes and shovels scattered on the ground, witnessing those cold, sharp edges, a shiver ran down their spines. This is a demonstration. The way to use these tools is similar to using ordinary sharp stones, but you must be careful at all times. Do not let yourselves be harmed.